I buried my 9-year-old son alone. Across town, my wife toasted to her ex-lover with champagne, celebrating being free with no baggage. They planned to take my company and wipe my account. What I did next will haunt them forever. The hospital chapel smelled like pine cleaner and old hymn books. I remembered that smell more than I remember breathing, more than I remember standing. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, that persistent electrical hum that fills every silence in places where people come to pray for miracles that don't arrive. I stood alone at the front of that empty room, staring at a casket so small it didn't seem real. Children's caskets shouldn't exist. That's what kept cycling through my mind, over and over, like a broken record player stuck on the same groove. They shouldn't exist, but there one was, white with brass handles, flowers arranged on top by someone who'd been paid to make death look peaceful. My son was in there. Ethan, 9 years old, 4 feet 3 inches tall the last time we measured him against the kitchen door frame, making that pencil mark he was so proud of because it was higher than last year's mark. He'd wanted to be a marine biologist. He had 17 books about sharks. He could name every species, tell you their hunting patterns, their migration routes, facts he'd memorized with the intensity only children possess when they love something purely. Now, he was in a box. The funeral director had asked me about the service. What time? Who would be speaking? Would there be a reception afterward? I'd answered in monosyllables, my voice coming from somewhere far away, like I was underwater and the words had to travel up through fathoms of grief to reach the surface. 2 o'clock, I'd said. Just me. No reception. He'd paused then, this middle-aged man with kind eyes and practiced sympathy. Will your wife be joining you? I'd looked at him for a long moment. No. He'd waited for me to elaborate. I didn't. What was there to say? That she'd left the hospital 3 days after Ethan's accident, before the machines were turned off, before the doctors had finished explaining that there was no brain activity, that our son was already gone, that her phone went straight to voicemail, that her mother claimed not to know where she was. The truth was too ugly for a funeral home lobby. So I'd buried my son alone. 23 people came. My parents, her parents who couldn't look me in the eye, a few colleagues from work who'd heard and came out of decency, Ethan's teacher, Mrs. Patterson, who cried through the whole service, and some neighbors. My best friend, Marcus, stood beside me, his hand on my shoulder, the only thing keeping me tethered to earth. The priest spoke words about God's plan and eternal peace. I didn't hear them. I heard Ethan's laugh instead, that bright, infectious giggle he'd get when something struck him as particularly funny. I heard him calling, "Dad, watch this," before attempting some feat of childhood daring. I heard the silence of his empty bedroom, the absence of footsteps on the stairs, the void where a voice should be asking what's for dinner. When they lowered the casket, I felt something inside me lower too. Some essential part of my humanity descending into that same dark earth, buried alongside the boy who'd called me his hero, who'd believed I could fix anything, who'd trusted me to keep him safe. I'd failed him. That's what the voice in my head whispered. The car had come from nowhere. The other driver drunk at 2 in the afternoon, and Ethan had been walking home from his friend's house 2 blocks away. 2 blocks. I'd let him go because he'd begged, because he was 9 and wanted independence, because I'd thought 2 blocks in our quiet neighborhood was safe. I'd failed him, and I was alone. The reception I'd declined to host happened anyway, at my parents' house. People brought casseroles and their discomfort, made small talk around the edges of tragedy, asked if there was anything they could do while hoping desperately that I'd say no. I left after 30 minutes, drove home through streets that looked wrong in the afternoon light, like a movie set, dressed to look like my life, but missing all the important props. The house was exactly as I'd left it that morning. Ethan's backpack by the door, his jacket on the hook, the breakfast dishes I'd been too shattered to wash. Everything in its place, everything wrong. I walked through rooms that echoed, checked my phone for the 100th time. Still nothing from Sarah. My wife of 11 years, mother of my dead son, had been silent for 6 days. Not at the hospital, not at the funeral, not a text, not a call, nothing. Her mother had told me she needed space. Space. As if grief was a crowded room you could step out of for fresh air. I'd stopped calling after the 3rd day, stopped texting after the 4th. Pride, maybe, or the first stirrings of something darker, something that felt like understanding without wanting to understand. I sat in Ethan's room as the afternoon faded to evening. His bed was still unmade from the last morning he'd slept in it. His latest shark book lay open on the desk, a page about great whites, a sentence he'd highlighted. They're not monsters. They're just survivors doing what they were built to do. That's when my phone finally rang. Not Sarah. Marcus. David, man, I'm sorry to call so soon after. I just thought you should know. I saw something. I don't know if I should tell you, but if it were me, I'd want to know. I closed my eyes. Just say it. I saw Sarah, downtown at Marcello's, that Italian place on 5th. Marcello's, the restaurant where we'd celebrated our 5th anniversary, where I'd proposed years before that, nervous and young and certain of everything. When? My voice was flat. About an hour ago. David, she wasn't alone. Of course she wasn't. The understanding I'd been avoiding crystallized into certainty. I didn't ask who she was with, didn't need to. There was only one person she'd choose over being at our son's funeral, only one person she'd protected with her silence and absence. Who? Marcus hesitated. Andrew Chen. Andrew Chen, former business partner, former friend, the man I'd bought out of our company 3 years ago when the partnership dissolved over creative differences. Creative differences meaning he'd wanted to cut corners, chase quick money, sacrifice quality for profit margins. I'd given him a generous settlement, kept things professional, even recommended him to other firms. Andrew Chen, who dated Sarah before me. Andrew Chen, who she told me was ancient history, nothing to worry about, just a college boyfriend. They looked pretty comfortable, Marcus continued carefully. Champagne on the table, celebrating something. I sat in my dead son's room, phone pressed to my ear, and felt the last piece of my old life crumble. Sarah hadn't just left. She'd left for him. While our son fought for life in a hospital bed, while I'd held Ethan's hand and begged him to wake up, while I'd made the decision to let him go because keeping him on machines wasn't life. She'd been with Andrew. While I buried our child alone, she'd been drinking champagne. David, you still there? Yeah. I stood up, something shifting in my chest. Not grief anymore. Something colder, clearer. Yeah, I'm here. Listen, maybe there's an explanation, maybe there isn't. I walked to the window, looked out at the neighborhood where my son had died. But thank you for telling me. I hung up, stood there as the room grew dark around me, thought about Sarah's behavior over the past year, the late nights at book club, the password change on her phone, the way she'd started going to the gym, buying new clothes, smiling at her screen when texts came through. I'd been so focused on Ethan, on building the company, on providing for our future. I'd missed every sign, or maybe I'd seen them and chosen blindness because acknowledging the truth meant facing the collapse of everything I'd built. But Ethan was gone now. The company, the house, the carefully constructed life, none of it had protected him. None of it mattered. I pulled out my laptop, opened it on Ethan's desk. The screen glowed blue in the darkness. My fingers moved across the keyboard with new purpose. Sarah wanted to celebrate being free. She'd left our son's funeral to drink champagne with her ex. Fine. Let her celebrate. Let her think she'd gotten away clean, that her silence was protection, that I was too broken to notice her absence meant something worse than grief. I pulled up our bank accounts first. Joint accounts I'd never thought to separate because married people trust each other, don't they? I checked the statements, going back months. There. Transfers I didn't recognize. 5,000 here, 10,000 there, all to an account I didn't know existed. Next, I opened the company files. The business I'd built from nothing, that I'd bought Andrew out of, that was mine. Started checking contracts, recent deals, client communications. And there, buried in CC'd emails I'd barely noticed, were messages between my head of operations and Andrew's new firm. Discussions about client lists, mentions of transition strategies, my own employee, feeding information to my ex-partner. The betrayal wasn't fresh. It had been growing for months, maybe years. A careful plan executed while I'd been playing the devoted husband and father, while I'd been trusting my wife and my business to remain secure because that's what you do when you build a life. You trust it to stand. I worked through the night, downloading files, taking screenshots, following digital trails that Sarah and Andrew had been too confident to fully hide. They'd been sloppy in the way people are when they think themselves unnoticed. When they think grief has made you blind. By sunrise, I had a clear picture. Sarah had been siphoning money for 8 months. Andrew had been poaching clients for 6. Together, they'd been planning something bigger, a complete takeover attempt, a hostile restructuring that would leave me pushed out of my own company. The emails spelled it out. Andrew bragging to Sarah about how David won't see it coming until it's too late. Sarah responding with heart emojis and I can't wait to be done with this charade. This charade. Our marriage. Our life. Our son. There was an email dated 5 days ago, the day after Ethan's accident. Sarah to Andrew. This might actually be perfect timing. He's completely destroyed. We can move up the timeline. Perfect timing. Our son's death was perfect timing for their plans. I closed the laptop carefully, precisely, the way you close something that contains an explosion. My hands weren't shaking. That surprised me. I'd thought they would shake. Instead, I felt calm, purposeful, like something had crystallized during that long night of discovery. Grief was still there, a massive weight on my chest, but it had company now. Clarity, focus, the kind of cold determination that comes when you've lost everything that matters and realize you therefore have nothing left to protect. They'd counted on my devastation to make me weak. They'd miscalculated. Grief hadn't made me weak. It had burned away everything soft, everything hesitant, everything afraid of consequences. I had buried my son alone while my wife celebrated freedom with champagne. She'd called our life a charade. She'd seen our child's death as an opportunity. What I was about to do wouldn't bring Ethan back. Nothing would. But it would ensure that Sarah and Andrew understood a simple truth. There are some betrayals so profound that the response must be equally profound. They wanted my company, my money. They wanted to walk away clean while I drowned in grief. I stood up from Ethan's desk as morning light filled the room, looked at the shark book still open on the page about great whites. Survivors doing what they were built to do. I wasn't built for surrender. I was built to protect what was mine. And even though I'd failed to protect Ethan, even though that failure would haunt me until my own last breath, I could still protect his memory. I could still ensure that the people who'd celebrated his death as an opportunity paid for that celebration, not with rage, not with violence, with something much more permanent, with truth. I didn't sleep. Sleep felt like a luxury for people whose worlds still made sense, whose wives came home at night, whose sons were alive. I sat at my desk in the study, the room Sarah had insisted we paint sage green because it was calming for productivity, and I compiled evidence. Evidence. Such a clinical word for the destruction of a marriage, for the documentation of betrayal. But that's what lawyers would need, what courts would require, what justice demanded. Cold, hard evidence. The first folder I created was labeled Financial, Professional, Detached. As if I were preparing a business presentation rather than cataloging how my wife had systematically robbed me while smiling over dinner, while kissing me goodnight, while pretending we were still partners in this thing called life. Bank statements going back 18 months painted a clear picture. The transfers had started small, $1,500 to an account at a different bank, then $2,000, then $5,000. They'd grown bolder as I'd grown more distracted, more focused on Ethan's school activities and the company's expansion. The summer had been particularly aggressive. $20,000 in June alone, spread across 4 transfers, each one timed for days when I was traveling for business. I cross-referenced the dates with my calendar. Every single transfer corresponded to a trip I'd taken. San Francisco for a client meeting, Boston for a conference, Seattle for a pitch. She'd waited for me to leave, then moved money like she was paying bills, casual as grocery shopping. The receiving account was registered to something called Clearwater Holdings, LLC, a shell company. I ran the incorporation papers through a business database I subscribed to, filed in Delaware 8 months ago. 2 principals listed, Sarah Mitchell and Andrew Chen. My wife hadn't even bothered to use her maiden name. I leaned back in my chair, watching the morning sun climb higher through the window. Somewhere in this city, Sarah was probably sleeping in, warm and comfortable, maybe in Andrew's bed, maybe in some apartment I didn't know about. Somewhere Andrew was probably dreaming about his victory, about stealing everything I'd built. They had no idea I was awake, no idea I was working. They thought grief had broken me into pieces too small to reassemble. The second folder was Communication. I'd given Sarah access to my company email years ago, back when we'd been genuinely partners, when she'd helped with administrative tasks during the startup phase. She'd kept that access, and I'd never thought to revoke it. Why would I? Married people trust each other. That access had let her forward emails to Andrew, client lists, project proposals, financial projections, everything he'd need to poach our biggest accounts and undercut our bids. I found 53 forwarded emails over the past 6 months. She'd been careful, deleting them from the sent folder, but email servers keep shadows of everything. Nothing is ever truly deleted. One email made me stop scrolling. From Sarah to Andrew, dated 2 months ago. He's getting suspicious about the money. I told him I've been investing in the boutique idea we talked about. He bought it completely. God, he's so trusting it's almost sad. Sometimes I feel bad, but then I remember how boring he's become. All he talks about is Ethan this, Ethan that. The company needs this, the company needs that. I can't wait until we're free of this. Can't wait until it's just us again, like college, but with actual money this time. He built something good. Shame he won't be around to enjoy it. I read that paragraph 5 times. Each time, different words jumped out. Boring, sad, trusting, shame. All he talks about is Ethan, our son, the child we'd made together. She'd found my love for him boring, an inconvenience, something standing between her and the life she really wanted. I saved the email, screenshot an original file, moved to the next one. By noon, I had a communication trail that told a complete story. Sarah and Andrew had been sleeping together for at least 10 months. The emails got suggestive before they got explicit. They'd started planning the business takeover 7 months ago. The money transfers had been funding their future together, building a nest egg in that shell company account. But the business plan was more elaborate than simple theft. Andrew had been working angles I hadn't considered. He'd approached 3 of my senior employees with offers. Better titles, higher salaries, equity stakes in his new venture. 2 had apparently accepted. I found their names in an email chain. Richard Torres, my head of operations, and Jennifer Park, my lead developer. People I'd mentored, people I'd trusted, people who'd sent flowers to Ethan's funeral while planning to gut the company he'd wanted to inherit someday. The third folder was Timeline. I created a spreadsheet, meticulous and color-coded because some part of my brain still functioned like a businessman even while processing betrayal. Green for established facts, yellow for probable connections, red for speculation that needed confirmation. The timeline showed patterns. Sarah's book club nights corresponded to Andrew's calendar blocks marked S dinner. Her weekend yoga retreats matched his weekend trips to wine country. They'd been hiding in plain sight, and I'd been too devoted, too trusting, too fucking stupid to see it. But the timeline also showed something else, something that made my hands finally tremble as I typed. 3 weeks before Ethan's accident, Sarah had transferred $35,000 to Clearwater Holdings, the largest single transfer. In the memo field, she'd written, "Final payment, Freedom Fund." 2 weeks before Ethan's accident, Andrew had filed preliminary paperwork for a hostile takeover attempt. Corporate documents requesting shareholder information, preliminary valuations, legal frameworks for forced buyouts. 1 week before Ethan's accident, Sarah had searched for divorce lawyers. I found the Google searches on our shared family computer, the one in the kitchen we barely used. She'd been careless, or maybe she thought I'd never look. Divorce attorney, high net worth. Separate business assets in divorce. Concealing income from spouse. The day of Ethan's accident, she'd had a consultation scheduled with Mitchell & Brown, the most aggressive divorce firm in the city. 2:00 p.m. The appointment was in her calendar under dentist. She'd been planning to leave before Ethan died. The accident hadn't changed her plans. It had accelerated them. I sat with that realization as the afternoon light shifted through the study window. My son had been hit by a drunk driver at 2:47 p.m. I'd gotten the call at 2:53. Sarah had been unreachable until 4:30 when she'd finally answered her phone, breathless and confused, claiming she'd been in a movie with her phone off. But I'd checked our credit cards yesterday, going through statements with new suspicious eyes. She'd been at Marcello's that afternoon, lunch with Andrew. There was a charge for $243 at 2:30 p.m. While our son lay dying 3 miles away, she'd been having expensive Italian food with her lover. When she'd finally arrived at the hospital at 5:15, she'd cried. I remembered those tears. They'd seemed real. Maybe they had been. Maybe she'd felt genuine grief for the child she'd carried for 9 months, whose first steps she'd celebrated, whose scraped knees she'd bandaged. But not enough grief to stay. Not enough to cancel her plans. Not enough to matter more than her freedom fund and her new life with Andrew. I opened the 4th folder. Legal strategy. My lawyer was Daniel Greaves, a sharp corporate attorney who'd handled the company's contracts for years. Good at his job, but he specialized in business law, not family law. I'd need someone else for the divorce, someone ruthless. But more than that, I'd need criminal lawyers, because what Sarah and Andrew had done wasn't just morally bankrupt, it was actually illegal. Embezzlement, corporate espionage, fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud. I could divorce Sarah and walk away with half of what was left after her theft, standard dissolution of marriage, split the assets, move on with separate lives. Or I could send her to prison. The thought should have shocked me, should have felt extreme, vindictive, wrong. Instead, it felt logical, appropriate, proportionate to the crime. She'd stolen from our family while our son was alive. She'd abandoned that son while he died. She'd celebrated his death as an opportunity, and she'd planned to take everything, the company, the money, the life I'd built, and walk away like I'd been nothing more than a stepping stone to something better. Some crimes deserve more than divorce settlements. I made a call, not to Daniel Greaves, to Marcus. "David," he answered on the first ring. "How are you holding up?" "I need the name of your cousin, the defense attorney in Chicago." Pause. "Raymond? Why do you need a criminal defense lawyer?" "Not defense, prosecution." "Who does he recommend for bringing charges?" "Not defending against them." Longer pause. "David, what's going on?" I told him. Not everything. That would take hours. But the outline, the money, the emails, the timeline, the celebration at Marcello's while Ethan was being lowered into the ground. Marcus was quiet for a long time after I finished. Then, Jesus Christ, David, I'm so sorry. I knew she wasn't at the funeral, but I don't know what I thought. I need names, best prosecutors, best divorce attorneys, people who win. You're sure? This is going to get ugly. Sarah's family has money. They'll fight back. I'm sure. I was staring at Ethan's school photo on my desk. 9 years old, gap-toothed smile, eyes full of trust. I've never been more sure of anything. Marcus gave me 3 names. Patricia Volkov for the divorce. She's a shark, David. She destroyed my friend's ex-husband in court, got him everything plus full custody. James Morrison for criminal charges. Former federal prosecutor, handles white-collar crime, wins 90% of his cases. And a forensic accountant named Linda Chen, no relation to Andrew. If there's money hidden, she'll find it. I called all 3 that afternoon, left messages for Volkov and Morrison, reached Linda Chen directly. Mr. Mitchell, I'm very sorry for your loss. Her voice was professional but warm. Marcus filled me in on the basics. I have some availability tomorrow afternoon if you'd like to bring me your documentation. I'll be there. I looked at the organized folders on my screen. I have bank statements, emails, transfer records, and a timeline. Is that enough to start? That's more than most people bring me. Mr. Mitchell, I have to ask, are you certain you want to pursue this course? Once we begin forensic accounting and involve attorneys, things will escalate quickly. There's no easy way to undo it. My wife stole from me while our son was dying. She celebrated his death with the man she's been cheating with. They're planning to take my company. I don't want an easy way. I want a thorough way. Then I'll see you tomorrow at 2. I spent the rest of the day organizing documents, printing emails, creating summaries, professional habit-taking. Over. The same meticulous approach I used for business proposals now applied to destroying my marriage and probably my wife's freedom. Around 7, my phone rang. Sarah. I stared at her name on the screen, the photo attached to her contact, us at the beach 2 summers ago, Ethan between us building a sandcastle, all of us laughing. When had that photo been taken? Before the affair started? During? Had she already been planning to leave when we'd smiled for that camera? I let it ring 4 times before answering. David. Her voice was soft, tentative. I'm sorry I haven't called sooner. I couldn't face it. Couldn't face the funeral. Couldn't face you. I'm falling apart, and I needed some space to process. The lies came so smoothly. If I hadn't spent the last 36 hours reading her emails, her contempt for me, her excitement about leaving, I might have believed her. The Sarah I'd married, the Sarah I'd thought I knew, would have been incapable of this kind of deception. But that Sarah had never existed. Or she'd died somewhere along the way, replaced by this stranger who could drink champagne while her son was being buried. Where are you? I kept my voice neutral. At my mother's. I needed to be somewhere that didn't remind me of him. The house is too much, David. Every room, every toy, I can't breathe there. Lie. I'd driven past her mother's house this morning. Her car wasn't there. But I didn't challenge her. Not yet. When are you coming home? I don't know. Soon. Maybe tomorrow. I just need a little more time. How are you doing? God, that's a stupid question. How could you be doing anything but terrible? I'm managing. True enough. The funeral was what it needed to be. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I know that's unforgivable. I just couldn't, David. I couldn't watch them put our baby in the ground. Our baby. She hadn't called Ethan that in years. Now, performing grief over the phone, it came easily. It's done now. I looked at my computer screen, at the email where she'd called my love for Ethan boring. We'll talk when you're ready. Thank you for understanding. I love you. I know I'm handling this all wrong, but I do love you. I know. The lie tasted like ash. Take the time you need. After she hung up, I sat in the study as darkness filled the room around me. Didn't turn on lights, just sat there, phone in hand, listening to the silence of the house. She'd said, "I love you," like it was punctuation, automatic, meaningless. I thought about saying it back, how the words had caught in my throat, because despite everything, the theft, the affair, the abandonment, some stupid broken part of me still remembered loving her, still remembered when those words had meant something true. But that was the old David, the trusting one, the one who'd believed in vows and partnership and the basic decency of the person sharing his bed. That David had been buried with his son. The man sitting in this dark room was someone new, someone harder, someone capable of looking at evidence of profound betrayal and feeling not rage but calculation. Someone who could plan his wife's destruction with the same focused intensity he'd once applied to building their life together. Tomorrow, I'd meet with the forensic accountant. Next week, the lawyers. Within a month, I'd have everything I needed to file criminal charges and divorce papers simultaneously. Sarah thought she had time, thought she was dealing with a grieving husband too shattered to notice her absence meant something worse than avoidance, thought her little performance on the phone had bought her space to continue her plans with Andrew. She was wrong. I pulled up a new document on my computer, started typing. Statement of events, timeline of theft, adultery, and abandonment. The title felt appropriately clinical, legal, final. I worked through the night again, refining my evidence, building my case. Outside, the city moved through its normal rhythms, people coming home from work, eating dinner, watching television, living lives that still made sense. My life had stopped making sense 6 days ago when my son died. But I was building a new kind of sense now. The cold, sharp logic of consequences. The mathematics of justice. Sarah wanted freedom. She'd get it. Prison was very freeing. No decisions to make, no performances to maintain, no lies to keep straight. Andrew wanted my company. He'd have plenty of time to think about it, from a cell next to hers. By dawn, I had everything organized, labeled, cross-referenced. A complete picture of their betrayal, ready to present to professionals who could transform evidence into charges, charges into convictions. I stood up, stretched, felt my back crack from hours of sitting. Walked to the kitchen, made coffee with hands that were finally steady. The old David would have confronted Sarah directly, would have shouted, cried, demanded explanations, would have given her a chance to apologize, to explain, to try to save things. But the old David was gone. The new David understood that some betrayals were too complete for forgiveness. Some crimes required not conversation, but prosecution. I drank my coffee and watched the sunrise through the kitchen window, the same window where Sarah had stood thousands of mornings, sipping tea, planning her day, and, apparently, planning my destruction. She'd made a mistake, though, a critical one. She'd assumed grief would make me weak. It had made me clear. Linda Chen's office was in a high-rise downtown, the kind of building with security desks and elevator banks that required key cards. Professional, legitimate. The exact opposite of the underground detective agency I'd half expected when Marcus mentioned a forensic accountant. She met me in the lobby herself, a woman in her mid-40s with sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and a handshake that was firm without being performative. "Mr. Mitchell, thank you for being punctual. Thank you for seeing me so quickly." Her office was on the 23rd floor, organized chaos of file boxes and computer monitors, whiteboards covered in flowcharts and numbers. One wall was entirely windows, offering a view of the city that would have been impressive if I'd been capable of appreciating views anymore. "Coffee? Water?" She gestured to a small conference table. "I'm fine." I set down my laptop bag, the weight of it significant with all the evidence I'd compiled. I brought everything I mentioned on the phone. "Good. Let's start with the basics." She pulled out a yellow legal pad, clicked a pen. "You said your wife has been transferring money without your knowledge." When did you first notice? 2 days ago, after the funeral. The word still felt wrong in my mouth. Funeral, like something from someone else's life. I hadn't been checking the accounts. I trusted her. I was focused on our son, on his care after the accident, on everything else. Linda nodded, writing, no judgment in her expression. She'd probably heard worse stories in this office. And the amounts? I opened my laptop, pulled up the spreadsheet I'd created. Starting 18 months ago, small transfers. Growing over time, total so far appears to be approximately $375,000. Her pen stopped. That's not a small amount, Mr. Mitchell. No. I turned the laptop toward her. It gets worse. I walked her through it. The shell company, Clearwater Holdings, the two principals, the timing of transfers corresponding to my business trips, the emails between Sarah and Andrew discussing the money, the company, their plans. Linda took notes, occasionally asking questions. What were our individual incomes? Did Sarah have access to business accounts or just personal ones? When had I last reviewed our tax returns? That last question stopped me. Tax returns. Jesus. I signed them every year without reading them carefully. She handled that kind of paperwork. Then we'll need to review those too. If she's been moving this much money, there's a chance she's been misreporting income, taking deductions that benefit her personally, or hiding assets that should be joint property. Linda pulled her laptop closer. With your permission, I'd like to request copies of the last 7 years of returns from the IRS. Whatever you need. She worked in silence for a few minutes, typing, pulling up databases I didn't recognize. Clearwater Holdings is registered in Delaware. That's common for shell companies, favorable laws, minimal disclosure requirements, but they still have to file annual reports. Let me see what's listed. More typing. Her expression grew more interested. According to their most recent filing, Clearwater Holdings has assets of approximately $800,000. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. That's more than double what Sarah transferred from our accounts, which means there are other income sources. Does your wife work? She did years ago, stopped when Ethan was born. She's been talking about starting a boutique, interior design consulting, something creative. I encouraged her, told her to pursue whatever made her happy. The bitterness in my voice was audible even to me. I thought we were partners in building a life. Turns out she was building an exit strategy. Linda's expression softened slightly. Mr. Mitchell, I know this is difficult, but I need you to focus on facts right now, not emotions. We can be angry later. Right now, we need to understand the full scope of what's happened. She was right. I took a breath. What do you need from me? Access to everything. Bank statements for all accounts, personal and business. Credit card records, tax returns, insurance policies, investment accounts. Anything financial that connects you and your wife. I'll also need access to your business accounts and records to verify if there's been any unauthorized access or transfers. I pulled a flash drive from my bag. I started gathering everything last night. It's not complete, but it's a start. Good. She took the drive, plugged it into her computer. I'll also need you to sign some authorizations so I can request records directly from financial institutions. The more comprehensive our picture, the better. And Mr. Mitchell, don't access those accounts anymore. Don't transfer anything, don't close anything. We need to preserve everything exactly as it is for evidence. What about Sarah? She still has access to everything. We'll deal with that. I'm going to recommend you speak with an attorney today, one of the names I'm guessing Marcus gave you, and have them file an emergency motion to freeze the accounts. It'll tip your hand that you're taking action, but it'll prevent further theft. I'm meeting with Patricia Volkov tomorrow morning. Linda smiled, genuine and brief. Patricia's excellent. She'll handle the freeze. In the meantime, I'm going to start digging into the shell company, tracking the money, and building a financial profile. This will take a few days, maybe a week for a preliminary report. Are you prepared for what we might find? Like what? Properties purchased in the shell company name, secret credit cards, hidden accounts. If your wife has been planning this for as long as it appears, she's been building a separate financial life. That life might include assets you didn't know existed, debts taken out in joint names that benefit only her, or tax fraud that could expose you to liability. The hits kept coming. I'd thought I'd grasped the scope of the betrayal, but every conversation revealed new layers. How much of this is criminal versus just grounds for divorce? Depends on what we find. Transferring money from joint accounts is typically a civil matter, handled in divorce court. But if she's committed fraud, filed false tax returns, or engaged in identity theft by opening accounts in your name, those are criminal. The emails you showed me, especially the ones discussing taking over your business through illegal means, could constitute conspiracy to commit fraud. She leaned back in her chair, studying me. Mr. Mitchell, I have to ask, what's your goal here? Are you looking to protect your assets in a divorce, or are you looking to press criminal charges? I thought about Sarah's voice on the phone last night. I love you, the ease of that lie. I thought about the email. All he talks about is Ethan this, Ethan that. I thought about the timeline. Her lunch with Andrew while our son died. Both, I said. I want to protect what's mine. But I also want them to pay for what they did. Not just the theft, the timing, the complete lack of humanity. Linda was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. Okay. Then we build two cases simultaneously. Financial evidence for the divorce to ensure you retain your business and assets. Criminal evidence for the prosecutor. They'll strengthen each other. The criminal case adds pressure to the divorce settlement, and the divorce discovery process can uncover evidence for criminal charges. How long? For a preliminary financial report, 1 week. For a comprehensive analysis that would stand up in court, 4 to 6 weeks. For criminal charges to be filed, if we go that route, could be months. The prosecutor will want an airtight case. Months. More time living in this nightmare. More time pretending I didn't know. More time watching Sarah perform her grief and lies while she and Andrew thought they were getting away with it. But good cases took time. Justice wasn't fast. It was thorough. Do it right, I said. I don't care how long it takes. I want it bulletproof. Then let's get started. We worked for the next 3 hours. Linda imported my files, walked me through signing authorizations, explained what she'd be looking for, and how she'd trace the money. She showed me patterns of financial abuse, common tactics in cases like this. Shell companies are classic, she said, pointing to a flow chart on her whiteboard. Money goes from joint accounts to the shell, making it look like a business expense or investment. Once it's in the shell, it can go anywhere. Personal accounts, property purchases, offshore transfers. The key is documenting every step of the chain. Can she move it again before we freeze things? She can try, but every transfer leaves a trail, especially if she's been careless. And Mr. Mitchell? Linda looked at me over her glasses. People who do this kind of thing are almost always careless eventually. They get confident. They think they're smarter than they are. Your wife has been moving significant amounts of money for 18 months, and she didn't hide it well enough. That tells me she didn't expect you to look. She was right. Until now. Until now, Linda agreed, which gives us the advantage. She doesn't know you're building a case. That means she's still making moves, still leaving evidence, still communicating with her partner. Every day you stay quiet is another day she adds to her own prosecution. It felt calculating, cold, strategic. Everything about this felt like I was becoming someone I didn't recognize, someone who could sit in an office discussing his wife's criminal prosecution with the same tone he'd use for a business deal. But maybe that's what happened when your world exploded. Maybe you became someone else entirely, someone harder, someone capable of surviving in a landscape where trust was suicide and love was a weapon. "What about Andrew?" I asked. "Andrew Chen, her partner in this. He's got a business, clients, reputation. If we go after Sarah, should we go after him too?" Linda pulled up the Clearwater Holdings information again. "He's listed as a principal, which makes him equally liable for any fraud committed through the company. If we can prove he knowingly participated in stealing from you, he faces the same charges she does. Plus, if he's been using inside information from your business to poach clients, that's corporate espionage in some jurisdictions. He has. I have emails. Then yes, we go after him too. In fact, going after both of them simultaneously is stronger. Conspiracy charges require multiple parties. Their communications with each other become evidence against both of them." She made some notes. "I'll need information on his business too. Financial records, if you have access to any. Client lists, any contracts or agreements you had with him from when he was your partner." "I have everything from the buyout, contracts, non-compete agreements, confidentiality clauses he signed." "Perfect. If he violated those agreements, that's additional grounds for civil suits. We can bury him in litigation even if criminal charges don't stick." The vindictive part of me appreciated that. Andrew had been my friend once. We'd started the company together, stayed up late planning strategy, celebrated our first big contract with cheap champagne because we couldn't afford the good stuff. I'd trusted him with proprietary information, with client relationships, with the foundation of everything I'd built. And he'd repaid that trust by sleeping with my wife and planning to destroy me. "Do it," I said. "Whatever damages we can pursue them all." Linda nodded. "I'll coordinate with Patricia Volkov on the civil side. For criminal charges, you'll need to bring in James Morrison and also connect with the district attorney's office. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. First, I build the financial case. Then we see what we have." We wrapped up around 5. I left with a folder of documents to sign, a list of additional information Linda needed, and a follow-up appointment scheduled for next week. Walking to my car, I felt strange, purposeful, but empty, like I was operating on autopilot, going through motions that needed to happen, but feeling disconnected from them. My phone buzzed. Text from Sarah. "Thinking about coming home tomorrow. I miss you. We need each other right now." I stared at those words. The performance was seamless. If I didn't know better, if I hadn't read her emails, if I hadn't traced the money, I'd believe her. I'd open my arms and welcome her back, grateful she'd worked through her grief enough to return. But I did know better. I typed back, "Whenever you're ready, the house is here. I'm here." Short, neutral, giving nothing away. Her reply came quickly. "Tomorrow afternoon then. I love you, David. We're going to get through this together." Together. What a beautiful lie. I drove home through rush hour traffic, the city moving around me in its normal patterns. People heading home to families, to dinner, to evening routines that made sense. I'd been one of them once. Now I was this, a man building a criminal case against his wife while she texted him love messages. The house was dark when I arrived. I'd stopped turning on all the lights. Seemed wasteful when I was mostly living in the study anyway, existing on coffee and the cold mathematics of revenge. I made a sandwich I didn't taste, took it to the study, opened my laptop again. Email from Marcus. "Ray gave Morrison your name. He's expecting your call. Also, Patricia Volkov's office called me for a reference. I told them you're solid. They're taking you on. You okay, man?" Was I okay? Impossible question. My son was dead. My wife was a stranger. My life was evidence in a criminal case. But I was functional, focused, moving forward with clear purpose. I typed back, "I'm what I need to be right now. Thanks for the connections." His reply, "That's not the same as okay. Come by sometime. Just to talk. Just to not be alone." But alone was safer. Alone meant no one could see me becoming this person, could witness the transformation from devoted husband to prosecutor. Alone meant I could work without explaining, plan without justifying, exist in this cold space without anyone trying to warm it with sympathy I didn't want. Soon, I lied. Got a lot to handle right now. I called Patricia Volkoff's office, scheduled a meeting for 9 a.m. the next day. Then James Morrison. His assistant was professional, efficient, got me on the calendar for next week. The machinery was in motion. Accountant investigating. Divorce attorney engaged. Criminal prosecutor waiting in the wings. All while Sarah thought she was coming home to her grieving husband who missed her. I pulled up the emails again. Reread the one about Ethan being boring. The one about perfect timing. The one where she'd discussed how trusting I was, how sad it was, how easy. Some part of me wanted to feel rage. Wanted to throw things, scream, destroy something physical to match the destruction inside me. But rage was messy. Rage made mistakes. I felt something colder instead. Surgical, precision. The same focus I brought to business negotiations, now applied to dismantling the people who'd tried to dismantle me. Tomorrow, Sarah would come home. She'd perform grief and reconciliation. She'd sleep in our bed, eat at our table, pretend we were a couple united in loss, and I'd let her. I'd play the role of devastated husband too broken to notice her absence had been convenient rather than necessary, because every day she stayed, thinking she was safe, was another day she'd make mistakes, send emails, move money, communicate with Andrew, build my case for me. Linda had been right. Confidence made people careless. Sarah was very, very confident. I opened a new document, started writing. Questions for Patricia Volkoff. 1. How quickly can we freeze accounts? 2. Can we do it without alerting Sarah beforehand? 3. What's the process for proving adultery in this state? 4. How do we protect the business in divorce proceedings? 5. Timeline for filing. 6. Can we pursue criminal charges simultaneously with divorce? The questions of a man preparing for war. But that's what this was, wasn't it? War. Not the hot kind with shouting and thrown objects. The cold kind, calculated, strategic. One not with passion, but with preparation. Sarah had started this war when she took the first dollar. She'd escalated it when she abandoned our son. She'd guaranteed its outcome when she celebrated his death as opportunity. I was just finishing it. Outside my study window, the city lights were coming on. Thousands of windows, thousands of lives, people dealing with their own problems, their own betrayals, their own grief. But none of them were dealing with mine. This was my war to fight, and I was going to win it. She arrived at 3 in the afternoon, her car pulling into the driveway with a familiarity that felt obscene. I watched from the study window as Sarah got out, moving slowly, her shoulders hunched in a posture I recognized as her performance of grief. She'd always been good at reading situations, adapting her body language to match expectations. The woman walking toward our front door looked nothing like the one who'd been drinking champagne at Marcello's. This woman was wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweater, no makeup, hair in a messy bun, vulnerable, broken, everything a grieving mother should look like. I met her at the door. David. Her voice cracked on my name. She dropped her bag and reached for me, and I let her collapse into my arms because that's what the script required. She smelled like unfamiliar shampoo and expensive perfume I hadn't bought her. Andrew's scent, probably clinging to her skin even after she tried to wash it away. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed into my shoulder. "I'm so sorry I wasn't here. I'm so sorry I left you alone with everything. I couldn't handle it. I just couldn't. And I know that's not an excuse, but I fell apart. It's okay." The lies came easier than I'd expected. "You're here now." She pulled back, looked at me with red-rimmed eyes that might have been from crying, or might have been from rubbing them to look like she'd been crying. "How are you?" God, what a stupid question. You buried our son alone. How could you be anything but destroyed? One day at a time. I guided her inside, closed the door. The house suddenly felt smaller with her in it, the air thicker. Have you eaten? I can't eat. Every time I try, I can't. She looked around the living room like she was seeing it for the first time. Is it weird that it feels different? The house, like it knows he's gone? It's not weird. She moved through the room slowly, touching things. The couch where Ethan used to build pillow forts, the kitchen table where he'd done homework, the bookshelf with his favorites. Her fingers traced each object like she was reading Braille, interpreting loss through texture. I watched her performance, cataloged every gesture, every sigh, every carefully constructed moment of grief. She was good. If I didn't know what I knew, I'd believe every second of it. I keep expecting to hear him, she said softly. His footsteps on the stairs, his voice calling for us. The silence is so loud, David. How do you stand it? You don't stand it. You just exist inside it. She turned to me, tears streaming down her face. Real tears this time, I thought. Maybe. Or maybe she was just that good. I don't know how to do this. How to be in a world where he's not. How to wake up tomorrow and the day after and the day after that, knowing he's never coming back. Neither do I. She closed the distance between us, wrapped her arms around me again. At least we have each other. That's something, right? We can get through this together. Together. That word again, the same word she'd texted me last night. The same lie repackaged with tears and proximity. I held her, felt her body shake with sobs, and felt absolutely nothing. That surprised me more than anything. Not rage, not pain, not even the ghost of the love I'd once felt for this woman. Just a vast, cold emptiness where emotion should be. Let's sit down, I said. You should rest. We sat on the couch, the same couch where we'd watched movies as a family, where Ethan had fallen asleep during boring adult shows, where we'd been something like happy once. Sarah curled into my side, her head on my shoulder. Tell me about the funeral, she said quietly. I need to know, even if it hurts. So I told her, edited version. I described the service, the people who came, the priest's words. I didn't mention how empty it had felt without her. Didn't mention Marcus's call about seeing her at Marcello's. Didn't mention that I'd spent the burial thinking about what her absence meant. Who was there? She asked. I listed names. She tensed slightly when I mentioned her parents. They came. Of course they came. They loved Ethan. I know, I didn't tell them I wasn't going. I told them I couldn't handle seeing people, that I was staying home. They must think I'm a monster. They asked about you. I said you needed space. She was quiet for a moment. Thank you for covering for me. Covering for her. Like her absence had been a minor social faux pas rather than abandonment. Like I'd been protecting her reputation rather than avoiding explaining something I didn't understand. Sarah, where were you? Really? She stiffened. I told you, my mother's. Your car wasn't there when I drove by. Pause. Too long. I was driving around, just driving, trying to clear my head. I couldn't stay still. Every time I stopped moving, I started thinking about him, and I couldn't breathe. Plausible, almost believable. If I didn't have credit card receipts and GPS data that would tell a different story. You could have called, I said. I know, I should have. I wasn't thinking clearly. I'm still not. She lifted her head, looked at me. Are you angry with me for not being there? Loaded question. Trap question. If I said yes, I'd be the unsympathetic husband who couldn't understand her grief. If I said no, I'd be giving permission for future absences, future lies. I'm not angry, I said carefully. I'm confused. I'm hurt, but mostly I'm just trying to get through each day. I'll do better, she promised. I'll be here. We'll help each other through this. She kissed me then, soft and desperate, tasting of salt and lies. I kissed her back because the script required it, because pulling away would raise questions I wasn't ready to answer. Her hands moved to my shirt, starting to unbutton it. "Sarah, please," she whispered. "I need to feel something other than this pain. I need to feel connected to you. I need to know we're still us." Sex as comfort. Sex as proof of connection. Sex as distraction from grief. It would have made sense in any other context. But this context was poisoned. Her hands on my skin felt like contamination. The thought of being intimate with someone who'd been intimate with Andrew, who'd celebrated our son's death as opportunity, who was probably calculating right now how this moment would secure her position. "I can't," I said, catching her hands. "Not yet. It's too soon. Everything feels too raw." I saw the flash of frustration cross her face before she hid it with understanding. "Of course. I'm sorry, I wasn't thinking. You're right." She settled back against me, but the energy had shifted. She'd been rejected, and she didn't like it. Sarah had always used sex as a tool, for connection when things were good, for reconciliation after fights, for manipulation when she wanted something. My refusal had broken her script. We sat in uncomfortable silence for a while. Then she said, "I should probably start going through his things. Donate his clothes, pack up his toys. We can't keep his room like a shrine forever. It's been less than a week, I know, but keeping it all there, untouched, it feels like we're waiting for him to come back. And he's not coming back, David. We have to accept that." The practicality felt wrong. Ethan's body was barely cold in the ground, and she was talking about erasing his room, removing evidence of his existence. "I'm not ready for that," I said firmly. Okay, that's fine. Whenever you're ready." She paused. "What about his funeral expenses? The burial plot? I should help with that. Let me look at the bills." And there it was, the real reason for her concern. She wanted to see the finances, wanted to know if I'd noticed anything unusual. "It's handled," I said. "David, let me help. I know I wasn't there, but I can at least—" "It's handled, Sarah. Insurance covered most of it. The rest I paid. Still, I should see the statements. Make sure everything's organized. You've had so much on your shoulders." She was pushing, testing, trying to gauge how much attention I'd been paying to money while dealing with Ethan's death. "I appreciate it," I said, "but right now, I need you to just be here, present. We can worry about paperwork later." Frustration flickered across her face again. "I'm trying to help." "I know, and I'm saying I don't need that kind of help right now." She stood up abruptly. "I'm going to take a shower, wash off the last few days." I watched her go upstairs, heard the bathroom door close, heard the water start. She'd be up there for a while, probably texting Andrew, updating him on the situation, recalibrating their plan now that I'd refused both sex and financial discussion. I pulled out my phone, texted Linda Chen. She's back, playing the grieving wife, already asking about finances. Linda's response was immediate. "Don't give her access to anything. Patricia filed the freeze motion this morning. Judge should rule tomorrow. Once accounts are frozen, she'll know you're taking action." How should I play it when that happens? Shocked, confused. Let her think the bank made an error. Buy yourself time to get all the evidence in order before confronting her directly. I put my phone away as I heard the shower shut off. A few minutes later, Sarah emerged in fresh clothes, damp hair, looking more like herself. More like the woman I'd married, and less like the performance she'd been giving. "I'm going to make dinner," she announced. "Something simple. We both need to eat." She moved around the kitchen with practiced ease, pulling out ingredients, starting to cook. This had been her domain once, before Ethan's activities and my work had turned dinner into takeout and quick meals. She'd loved cooking in the early years of our marriage, experimenting with recipes, making our small apartment smell like home. Watching her now felt like watching a ghost recreate old routines in a house that no longer belonged to her. "I've been thinking," she said as she chopped vegetables, "about what comes next. For us." "What do you mean?" "We need to figure out how to move forward. Maybe we should sell this house. Too many memories. Start fresh somewhere else." Sell the house. Convert our biggest asset into liquid funds she could access. Classic move. "It's too soon to make those kinds of decisions," I said. "I know, but we should start thinking about it. We could move somewhere smaller, save money, maybe travel, get away from all this pain. Travel, disappear, make it harder to track her, harder to serve her with papers. Sarah, our son died 6 days ago. I'm not thinking about moving or traveling. I'm thinking about getting through tonight, and then tomorrow night, and the night after that." "You're right. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to find solutions when there aren't any." She turned to face me, knife still in hand. "I hate seeing you like this, so broken. It kills me." The irony of her standing there with a knife, talking about what kills her, while actively planning to destroy me financially. It would have been funny if it weren't so horrifying. "We're both broken," I said. "But we're broken together. That means something." Dinner was pasta with marinara, simple and competent. We ate at the kitchen table, the same table where Ethan used to tell us about his day, where we'd had thousands of family meals. His chair sat empty between us, a void neither of us acknowledged. "This is good," I said, because the silence needed filling. "Thanks. I wasn't sure I remembered how to cook anymore." "You've been cooking at your mother's?" Brief hesitation. "A little. Mostly she's been taking care of me. I've been useless, honestly." Lie upon lie upon lie. I wondered if she even noticed anymore, or if deception had become so natural she couldn't separate it from truth. After dinner, she started cleaning up. I joined her, falling into old patterns. She washed. I dried. Domestic choreography we'd performed 1,000 times. "I missed this," she said softly. "Being here with you. Being home. Where's your overnight bag?" "What?" "You came with a bag. Where is it?" "Oh, in the car still. I'll get it later." But she wouldn't need an overnight bag if she'd really been at her mother's house 30 minutes away. She'd need a suitcase, multiple days of clothes, toiletries. She'd slipped. Small mistake, but revealing. "I'll get it for you," I offered. "No, it's fine. I'll grab it before bed." We finished the dishes in silence. Sarah kept glancing at me, trying to read my mood, probably wondering if her performance was working. Around 9, she yawned. "I'm exhausted. The last few days have been... I haven't slept well." "Go to bed. I'm going to stay up a while." "Will you come up later?" "Eventually." She kissed my cheek. "I'm glad I'm home. I know I handled everything wrong, but I'm going to do better. I'm going to be the wife you need right now." The wife I needed right now was honest, present, loyal. Everything Sarah wasn't, and probably had never been. "Good night," I said. She went upstairs. I waited until I heard the bedroom door close. Then I went to the front window and looked at her car in the driveway. The overnight bag was visible in the back seat, small, too small for multiple days. I could see clothes through the fabric, enough for maybe one night, because she hadn't been at her mother's house. She'd been somewhere else, somewhere close enough that she could come home quickly when she decided it was time to play the grieving wife. Andrew's place, most likely. I pulled out my phone, texted Linda. She brought an overnight bag, one night's worth of clothes. She's lying about where she's been. "Linda, document everything. Take a photo of the bag through the window, if you can do it without her seeing. Every detail matters." I took the photo, careful to capture the bag's size, the visible contents, added it to my evidence folder. Upstairs, I heard Sarah moving around, getting ready for bed. Soon, she'd be in our bed, sleeping in sheets she'd betrayed, pretending tomorrow would bring us closer together. She had no idea that tomorrow the accounts would freeze. No idea that her access to our money would vanish. No idea that I'd spent the last 3 days building a case that would destroy her. I sat in the study, in the dark, listening to the house settle around me. This house where we'd brought Ethan home from the hospital, where he'd taken his first steps, where he'd grown from baby to boy to the 9-year-old who'd loved sharks and believed his father could do anything. Sarah wanted to sell it, erase it, turn our life into cash she could divide and disappear with. But this house was Ethan's house. His memory lived in these walls, these rooms, these spaces where he'd existed. Selling it would be like burying him a second time. I wouldn't let her do that. I wouldn't let her do any of it. Tomorrow the freeze would happen. Tomorrow she'd discover her access was gone. Tomorrow the mask would start to slip, and I'd be watching, documenting, building, because this wasn't just about money anymore. It wasn't even about the company or the betrayal. This was about justice for a 9-year-old boy whose mother had found his death convenient. Sarah thought she was home, but home required honesty, trust, love. She'd walked into a trap, and I was going to spring it. The call came at 10:47 a.m. I was in the study, reviewing documents Linda had sent over, preliminary findings on Clearwater Holdings that showed even more hidden transactions. Sarah was in the kitchen on her phone, probably texting Andrew about how well her homecoming had gone. My phone lit up first. Unknown number. I answered. "Mr. Mitchell, this is Rebecca from First National Bank. I'm calling about your accounts." "Yes?" "We've received a court order to freeze all joint accounts in your name pending litigation. This includes checking, savings, and any linked credit cards. I'm required to inform you that no withdrawals or transfers can be made until the matter is resolved." I injected confusion into my voice. "I'm sorry, what? A court order? I don't understand." "The order was filed this morning by," she paused, checking, "Patricia Volkov, Esquire, representing you in a family law matter. You should have been notified by your attorney." Yes, I'm working with Patricia, but I didn't expect. When does this take effect?" "Immediately. As of this call, the accounts are frozen." I heard movement in the kitchen, Sarah's voice sharp. "What? What do you mean denied? Try it again." Rebecca was still talking. "Any questions, you should contact your attorney. We're simply executing the court's order." "I understand. Thank you." I hung up as Sarah appeared in the doorway, phone in hand, face pale. "David, something's wrong with our credit card. It's saying it's been declined." I looked up, manufactured confusion on my face. "Declined? That doesn't make sense. We have plenty of credit." "I know. I was just trying to order some things online and—" Her phone rang. She looked at the screen. "It's the bank," she answered, walked back into the kitchen. I could hear her voice rising. "Frozen? What do you mean frozen? On whose authority?" Pause. "A court order. We didn't—" Longer pause. "Patricia Volkov? I don't know who that is." Her voice was climbing toward panic now. I stood up, walked to the kitchen doorway, watched her face cycle through confusion to fear to something harder. "This is a mistake," she said into the phone. "A huge mistake. You need to unfreeze them right now." I could hear the tinny voice on the other end, explaining that they couldn't, that it was a legal matter, that she'd need to contact the attorney listed on the order. Sarah hung up, turned to me. "Did you do this?" "Do what?" "Freeze our accounts. Did you freeze our fucking accounts?" I let shock register on my face. "What?" "No. Sarah, I just got a call from the bank, too. They said something about a court order from an attorney. Your attorney." "I don't have an attorney. I mean, I have Daniel for business stuff, but he wouldn't—" "Patricia Volkov. That's who filed the order." "Who is she?" I pulled out my phone, made a show of looking confused. "I don't know. Let me call Daniel. Maybe he knows what's going on." "Don't." She grabbed my arm. "Don't call anyone yet. Let me think." Her mind was racing. I could see it in her eyes, the calculations, the panic barely controlled. If the accounts were frozen, she couldn't move money. Couldn't transfer funds to Clearwater Holdings. Couldn't execute whatever next step she and Andrew had planned. Sarah, what's going on? I kept my voice concerned, worried. Why would someone freeze our accounts? I don't know. This doesn't make sense unless... She stopped herself. Unless what? Nothing. It's probably just some bureaucratic mistake. Maybe related to Ethan's death certificate or insurance or something. Insurance. She was grasping, trying to find an explanation that didn't involve exposure. Should we call them back? Get this sorted out? No. I mean, yes, but I need to make some calls first. Figure out what's happening. She grabbed her purse, pulled out her personal phone. Not the one she'd been using around me, but another one. Second phone. Of course she had a second phone. I'm going to step outside, she said. Make some calls. This is probably just a misunderstanding. I watched her go out the back door, pace the yard with her phone pressed to her ear. Calling Andrew, undoubtedly. Probably panicking. Probably trying to figure out if I knew something or if this was coincidental timing. Through the window, I could see her gesturing, agitated. Then she stopped moving, stood very still, listening to something that made her face go white. She came back inside 5 minutes later, calmer, too calm. It's a mistake, she said. A friend of mine, she's a paralegal. She looked into it. Apparently, there was some kind of identity theft flag on our accounts. The bank froze them automatically as a security measure. Identity theft? Yeah, someone tried to open a credit card in your name or something. It's standard procedure. We just need to go to the bank, verify our identities, fill out some paperwork. Should be resolved in a few days. The lie was smooth. She'd had 5 minutes to construct it, probably with Andrew's help, and she'd landed on something plausible enough to buy time. That's a relief, I said. I was worried something serious was wrong. No, just bureaucratic nonsense. She forced a smile. Annoying timing, though. I was going to take you to dinner tonight. Get us out of the house. Guess we'll have to use cash. We don't have to go out. I want to. We need some normalcy, David. We can't just sit in this house drowning in grief forever. Normalcy. She wanted to get me out of the house, away from phones and computers, somewhere she could perform her role and gauge how much I suspected. Maybe tomorrow, I said. I'm not really up for going out yet. Frustration flickered across her face. You have to start living again sometime. It's been a week, Sarah. 1 week since we buried our son. I'm not ready for dinner dates. It's not a date, it's just... Fine. Whatever, stay here and wallow. She went upstairs. I heard the bedroom door close harder than necessary. I texted Linda. She knows about the freeze. Made up a story about identity theft. She's rattled. Linda. Good. Let her sweat. Patricia wants to meet with you this afternoon. Can you get away? Yes. What time? 2 p.m. Her office. I spent the next few hours acting normally, or as normally as a grieving father could act. Made lunch. Watched news I didn't absorb. Acted like a man whose biggest concern was getting through the day. Sarah came back downstairs around 1, calmer. I'm sorry I snapped at you. This bank thing just stressed me out on top of everything else. It's okay. We're both on edge. Where are you going? She'd noticed I was putting on shoes. Out for a drive. I need to clear my head. Want company? I need to be alone for a bit. That okay? I saw the calculation in her eyes. She wanted to say no, wanted to keep tabs on me, but pushing too hard would raise suspicion. Of course. Take all the time you need. Patricia Volkov's office was in a converted townhouse downtown, elegant in an understated way. The receptionist showed me to a conference room where Patricia was waiting, a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. Mr. Mitchell, please sit. She gestured to a chair. First, let me express my condolences for your loss. I can't imagine what you're going through. Thank you. Linda Chen has brought me up to speed on the financial situation. I've reviewed the documentation you provided. It's extensive. She opened a folder. The accounts are frozen as of this morning. Your wife will have received notification. How did she react? Panicked, then lied. Said it was identity theft, that it would be resolved in a few days. Patricia nodded. That's actually good for us. It shows consciousness of guilt. If she genuinely thought it was a mistake, she'd be demanding we fix it immediately. Instead, she's stalling. What happens now? Now we build the divorce case while Linda builds the criminal case. They'll run parallel. The freeze protects your assets while we determine the full scope of what's been taken. But Mr. Mitchell, I need to be very clear with you about something. She leaned forward. What you're asking me to do, pursuing both criminal charges and divorce simultaneously, is aggressive. It's going to be ugly. Your wife will hire attorneys who will attack your character, your parenting, your business practices. They'll try to paint you as vindictive, as using your son's death to punish her for grieving differently than you. Are you prepared for that? Yes. They'll drag your name through the mud. They'll make you look like the villain. I don't care. Your business relationships might suffer. Clients might distance themselves from the controversy. I don't care, I repeated. She stole from us while our son was alive. She abandoned him while he was dying. She celebrated his death as an opportunity. I don't care what it costs me to make sure she pays for that. Patricia studied me for a long moment. Okay then, let's talk strategy. She pulled out a timeline. Linda's preliminary findings show approximately $375,000 in direct transfers to the shell company. But there's more. Credit cards you didn't know about, opened in joint names, maxed out for cash advances that went into that same company. Total debt incurred, $68,000. My stomach turned. I'm liable for that. As of now, yes, but we'll argue fraud, argue she opened them without your knowledge or consent. With the documentation you have, the emails, the timeline, we can likely get those debts assigned entirely to her in the divorce. What about the business? Andrew's been trying to poach clients. That's thornier. He's not an employee, so non-compete clauses don't apply to him personally. But if we can prove he used information obtained illegally through your wife's access to your systems, we can sue for damages, corporate espionage, tortious interference with business relationships. Won't be criminal, but it'll cost him. She flipped through more papers. The adultery is relevant in this state for divorce proceedings. It can affect asset distribution, especially combined with the financial fraud. We're looking at a scenario where you could potentially retain the house, the business, and majority of remaining assets. And her? If the criminal charges stick, prison time. If they don't, but the divorce case is strong, she walks away with minimal assets, maybe some spousal support for a limited time, but nothing close to half of what you've built. And Andrew? Patricia smiled. It wasn't warm. Andrew's business is built on reputation. Corporate clients don't like scandal. Even if criminal charges don't stick to him, the civil suits will be public record. His name attached to fraud allegations, to destroying a grieving father's company while sleeping with the man's wife. That'll follow him. Clients will leave. Contracts will dissolve. He'll spend years rebuilding, if he can rebuild at all. Good. There's one thing we need to discuss, though. The timing of filing. She pulled out a calendar. We could file divorce papers now, this week. Strike while the accounts are frozen and she's off balance. But James Morrison, the prosecutor, he wants to wait. He wants Linda to complete her full investigation, wants to build an airtight criminal case before we show our full hand. That could take 6 to 8 weeks. Which means I have to live with Sarah for 2 months, pretending everything's fine. Not fine. You're grieving. You're distant. You're dealing with your son's death. But yes, you'd have to coexist without revealing that you Know about the affair, the theft, the plans. Can you do that? I thought about Sarah upstairs this morning, panicking about the freeze. Thought about her carefully constructed lies, her performance of grief, her calculated attempts to manipulate me. I can do that. It won't be easy. She'll try to get you to unfreeze the accounts. She'll have explanations, excuses. She might even confess to the affair if she thinks that's the secret you've discovered. I won't unfreeze anything. She'll threaten to leave. Let her. Patricia nodded slowly. You're very calm about all this, Mr. Mitchell. That's good for the case, but I need to make sure you're okay. Really okay. You've lost your son, discovered your wife's betrayal, and you're planning to systematically destroy her life. That's a lot. I'm not destroying her life. I'm revealing the life she built in secret while destroying mine. Semantics. Maybe. But I need to do this. Not just for me. For Ethan. She called loving him boring. She saw his death as convenient timing. That can't go unpunished. Patricia closed her folder. Then here's what happens next. We keep the accounts frozen using the identity theft story if we need to, or we let the truth come out slowly, that you're investigating financial irregularities. We let Sarah panic, let her make mistakes. Every conversation she has with Andrew, every move she makes to hide assets or contact accounts, it all becomes evidence. Linda mentioned wiretaps. That's Morrison's territory. If he can show probable cause for criminal activity, he might be able to get authorization to monitor communications between Sarah and Andrew. But that's down the line. She stood. For now, you go home. You act grieving, but not suspicious. You let Sarah think the account freeze is banking error or identity theft, or whatever story she sold you. You document everything. Where she goes, who she calls, what she says, and you wait. For how long? Until Linda and Morrison say the case is ready. Then we file everything at once. Divorce papers, criminal charges, civil suits against Andrew. We hit them from every direction simultaneously so they can't prepare a coordinated defense. Shock and awe. Exactly. Patricia walked me to the door. One more thing, Mr. Mitchell. Once we do this, there's no going back. Sarah will never forgive you. Your marriage is over. Your wife will potentially go to prison. Are you absolutely certain this is what you want? I thought about Ethan's funeral. The empty chair next to me where Sarah should have been. The silence of her phone while our son was being buried. I'm certain. I drove home through afternoon traffic, mind cycling through everything Patricia had told me. 6 to 8 weeks. 2 months of living with Sarah, sleeping in the same house, pretending I didn't know she was sleeping with Andrew, that she'd stolen hundreds of thousands, that she'd found our son's death convenient. 2 months of performance. But I could do it. I'd already started. This morning's confusion about the freeze. That had been convincing. Sarah had believed it. I just had to keep believing it myself. Keep playing the broken husband, the grieving father too, shattered to notice his wife's betrayal. Sarah's car was in the driveway when I got home. Through the window, I could see her in the kitchen, on her phone again. The second phone, not the one she used around me. I sat in my car for a moment, watching her. She was animated, upset, gesturing as she talked. Probably to Andrew. Probably about the accounts, about what to do next, about whether I suspected anything. She had no idea I'd just come from a meeting with a divorce attorney. No idea that right now, a forensic accountant was tracing every dollar she'd stolen. No idea that a former federal prosecutor was reviewing her emails for criminal charges. She thought she was ahead, thought she was managing the situation, but she was already caught. She just didn't know it yet. I got out of the car, walked to the front door, composed my face into appropriate grief and confusion. Time to perform. The next 3 weeks were a masterclass in deception. Every morning I woke up next to a woman who'd betrayed me in every possible way, and every morning I played the role of devoted husband, united with her in grief. It was easier than I'd expected. Grief made a convenient mask for everything else. Distance, coldness, the fact that I couldn't bear her touch. Sarah interpreted my withdrawal as trauma, not suspicion. She'd lean in for a kiss, and I'd turn my head slightly so as her lips caught my cheek instead. She'd reach for my hand, and I'd pull away to wipe my eyes, to grab a tissue, to do anything but let her skin touch mine. "You're so far away," she said one night, about a week after the accounts froze. We were sitting in the living room, the television on, but neither of us watching it. "I feel like I can't reach you. I'm sorry, I'm not all here right now." "I know, I'm not either." She moved closer on the couch. "But we have each other. That's what matters. We'll get through this together." Together. That word had become her favorite lie, repeated so often it had lost all meaning. We'll get through this together. We have each other. We're in this together. Every iteration made me want to laugh, or scream, or tell her exactly what I knew. But I didn't. I nodded, squeezed her hand briefly before letting go, played my part. The account freeze was still in effect. Sarah had stopped asking about it directly after the first few days, but I could see it eating at her. She'd casually bring up finances in conversation. "We should probably look at our budget, figure out what we can cut back on." Testing to see if I'd suggest unfreezing the accounts. I never did. Instead, I'd gotten a small emergency line of credit in my name only, enough to cover household expenses. Patricia had advised it. Keep things functioning normally, don't give Sarah ammunition to claim I was freezing her out maliciously. But Sarah couldn't access it, couldn't control it, couldn't siphon from it. I watched her frustration build. She'd try to order things online, and the cards would decline. She'd make excuses. The bank is still sorting out that identity theft thing. But her voice carried an edge now. She'd disappear for hours at a time. "Going to therapy," she'd say, or meeting my book club, or having coffee with Mom. I'd nod, tell her to take all the time she needed, and as soon as her car left the driveway, I'd text Linda. "She's out, says therapy, track if you can." Linda had suggested installing a GPS tracker on Sarah's car, legal in this state if I owned the vehicle, which I did. She'd also suggested checking Sarah's second phone if I ever got access to it. I hadn't found the second phone yet. Sarah kept it hidden, only pulled it out when she thought I wasn't watching. But I'd seen it enough times to know it existed, to know she was maintaining a whole separate communication system. One afternoon, while Sarah was supposedly at therapy, I went through her things, carefully, methodically, the way you search when you know you have to leave everything exactly as you found it. Her dresser drawers, clothes, jewelry, nothing unusual. Her closet, more clothes, shoes, box of old photos. Her nightstand, books, lotion, sleep mask. Nothing. I was about to give up when I noticed the heating vent in the corner of our bedroom. The grate was slightly crooked, like someone had removed it recently and not quite replaced it properly. I pulled the grate off. Inside, tucked into the ductwork, the second phone. My hands were steady as I pulled it out. iPhone, newer model, pink case. I pressed the power button. Password protected, of course. I tried her birthday. Wrong. Tried Ethan's birthday, felt sick doing it. Wrong. Tried our anniversary. Wrong. Then, on impulse, I tried Andrew's birthday. I'd remembered it from the years when we'd been partners, when I'd signed cards and chipped in for gifts. The phone unlocked. Her password was his birthday. I sat on the bedroom floor, holding proof of how thoroughly I'd been replaced, and opened her messages. The thread with Andrew was hundreds of texts long. I scrolled to the top, started reading. From 6 months ago. Andrew. Can't stop thinking about yesterday. When can I see you again? Sarah. Tuesday. He's in SF all week. We'll have time. Andrew. I can't believe we waited this long. Should have left him years ago. Sarah. Soon, once the plan works, we'll have everything. His money, his company, our future. Andrew. Our future. I like the sound of that. I kept scrolling. The texts grew bolder, more explicit. Photos I had to swipe past quickly, couldn't look at without rage clouding my vision. Plans for trips they'd take, houses they'd buy, the life they'd build once I was out of the picture. Then I found the texts from the day Ethan died. Sarah. Something happened. E was in an accident. Bad one. Andrew. Shit. How bad? Sarah. They're saying brain dead. David's at the hospital. He wants me there. Andrew. Are you going? Sarah. Do I have to? This is so awful. I can't deal with hospitals. Andrew. You're his mother. You probably should make an appearance. Sarah. I know. God, this is terrible timing. We were supposed to finalize the company stuff this week. Andrew. The company can wait. Go be with your kid. Sarah. He's not going to make it. They're saying we have to decide about pulling the plug. I can't be the one to make that decision. I can't. Andrew. So David decide. Come here instead. I'll take care of you. Sarah. You're right. He's better at this stuff anyway. He'll know what to do. I'll stay for a bit, then come to you. That was it. The conversation that had determined my son's final hours. She'd weighed being at the hospital against being with Andrew, and Andrew had won. I kept reading, feeling colder with each message. From the day after Ethan died. Sarah. He's gone. They turned off the machines this morning. Andrew. I'm sorry, babe. That's rough. Sarah. David's destroyed, completely broken. This might actually work in our favor. Andrew. How do you figure? Sarah. He's not going to be paying attention to business or finances for months. We can move up the timeline. Hit him while he's down. Andrew. That's cold. I like it. But are you okay? That was your kid too. Sarah. I'm sad, obviously, but E and I were never that close. He was always more David's kid than mine. Honestly, it's almost a relief. No custody battles to deal with later. I had to stop reading, had to put the phone down and breathe through the wave of nausea that hit me. A relief. She'd called our son's death a relief because it simplified her divorce plans. No custody battles. I picked up the phone again, kept scrolling with shaking hands. From the day of the funeral. Andrew. Are you really not going? Sarah. I can't. I'll fall apart. Better to let David handle it. Andrew. People will talk. Sarah. Let them. I'm the grieving mother who couldn't face saying goodbye. They'll understand. Andrew. If you're sure, want me to come over? Sarah. Yes, bring champagne. I need to celebrate something today, even if it's just us. Andrew. Celebrating what? Sarah. Freedom. No more pretending, no more kid to worry about. Just a few more weeks and we can start our real life. I took screenshots. Every message, every photo, every piece of evidence that showed not just adultery, but complete sociopathy. The phone's storage was nearly full with their communication. Then I found the voice memos. She'd been recording conversations with Andrew, planning sessions, mostly. I clicked on one dated a month ago. Andrew's voice. So the key is getting him out before he realizes what's happening. We file the hostile takeover paperwork, get 3 of his senior people to jump ship to my firm, and tank his biggest client relationship all in the same week. Sarah's voice. Won't he fight back? With what? By the time he figures out what's happening, we'll have drained the accounts, locked up his key personnel, and destroyed his client base. The company will be worth nothing. He'll have to sell it to me for pennies or watch it collapse. And you're sure this works legally? As long as we're careful about the paper trail. That's where you come in. You keep moving money into Clearwater. Keep it looking like legitimate business expenses or investments. By the time lawyers get involved, it'll be too tangled to trace quickly. What about after? After we take the company? After we're golden. Your divorce from David will be finalized. You'll get half of what's left, which admittedly won't be much, but combined with what we've already siphoned, we'll have over $1 million to start with. We take that, build my company into what David's should have been, and live the life we should have had from the beginning." Sarah laughed. "I can't believe I wasted 11 years with him." "Hey, it wasn't wasted. You learned how to run a successful company by watching him. Now you get to do it with someone who actually appreciates you." The recording ended. I sat there on my bedroom floor, holding evidence of a conspiracy so complete it would likely put both of them in prison. They'd planned everything: the theft, the company destruction, the divorce, the aftermath. The only thing they hadn't planned for was Ethan dying, and even that they'd turned into an opportunity. I heard Sarah's car in the driveway. She was back from therapy. I quickly took more screenshots, memorized where I'd found the phone, replaced it exactly as it had been in the heating vent. Replaced the grate carefully, made sure it was crooked in the same way. Then I went downstairs, composed my face into appropriate grief, and met her at the door. "How was therapy?" I asked. "Hard, but good. Dr. Morrison thinks I'm making progress." She set down her purse, and I noticed her hand was shaking slightly. "How are you doing?" "Same as always." She moved closer, studied my face. "You look tired. Are you sleeping?" "Not much." "Me neither." She touched my arm. "David, we need to talk about the accounts. This freeze has been going on for 3 weeks now. We need access to our money. I called the bank again today and they said it's not identity theft. It's some kind of legal hold. Do you know anything about that?" Here it was, the confrontation I'd been waiting for. "Legal hold?" I frowned. "That doesn't make sense. What kind of legal hold?" They wouldn't tell me. Said I needed to contact the attorney who filed the order. She was watching me carefully. "Do you know an attorney named Patricia Volkov?" "No. Should I?" "She's the one who filed the order freezing our accounts." I let confusion show on my face. Why would an attorney I don't know freeze our accounts? That doesn't make any sense, Sarah. I know it doesn't. That's why I'm asking if you know anything about it. I don't. This is the first I'm hearing that it's not identity theft. You told me it was identity theft. She had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. That's what my friend thought it was, but apparently it's something else. Then we should call this Patricia Volkov. Find out what's going on. I tried. Her office said she couldn't discuss the matter with me, that I'd need to retain my own attorney. Your own attorney, Sarah, what the hell is happening? She sat down heavily on the couch. I don't know. David, I think someone might be coming after us financially, maybe someone from your business, a disgruntled client or competitor. The lie was creative. I had to give her that. Why would they freeze personal accounts? I don't know, but we need to figure this out. We need lawyers. Good ones. Okay, tomorrow I'll call Daniel, have him look into it. Not Daniel. We need family law attorneys, someone who specializes in this kind of thing. She wanted her own lawyer, wanted to get ahead of whatever she thought was coming. If you think that's best, I said. I do. In fact, I already have a consultation scheduled for tomorrow with Mitchell and Brown, the firm she'd been planning to use before Ethan died, the appointment she'd had the day of his accident. That's fast, I observed. Well, I've been worried about this for weeks. I finally did something about it. She looked at me. You should get your own attorney too, just in case. In case of what? In case this is more complicated than we think. She was setting up the divorce, right here, right now, under the guise of protecting us from some external threat. Brilliant, really. She'd frame it as both of us needing separate counsel for some mysterious legal issue, and by the time I figured out she was filing for divorce, she'd have her attorney in place, her story prepared. Okay, I said. I'll make some calls tomorrow. Relief flickered across her face. Good. We'll figure this out. Whatever it is, we'll handle it. She stood up, kissed my forehead. I'm going to start dinner. You should rest. I watched her go to the kitchen, pull out ingredients, start cooking like this was a normal evening in a normal marriage. Like she hadn't just been plotting with her lover to destroy me. Like our son's death was a convenience rather than a tragedy. Like I didn't know everything. I pulled out my phone, texted Linda, found her second phone. Hundreds of texts and voice recordings. They planned everything, sending screenshots now. Then I texted Patricia. She's hiring Mitchell and Brown tomorrow, trying to get ahead of the divorce. Patricia's response was immediate. Let her. Everything she does now is evidence. How are you holding up? I looked at Sarah in the kitchen, humming softly as she cooked, playing house, playing wife. I'm fine, I typed back. How much longer until we move? Linda says 2 more weeks for complete financial analysis. Morrison wants to review everything before filing charges. Can you last 2 more weeks? 2 more weeks of this. Of pretending. Of sleeping in the same house as someone who'd celebrated my son's death. Yes, I typed. I can last. Because I had to. Because every day Sarah thought she was safe was another day she added to her own conviction. Every conversation with Andrew, every moved dollar, every lie she told, it all went into the file that would destroy her. Sarah called from the kitchen. Dinner's almost ready? Coming, I called back. I stood up, pocketed my phone, walked toward the kitchen and the woman who'd destroyed everything, while pretending to build a life. 2 more weeks. Then the mask could come off. All of them. Sarah left for her attorney consultation at 9 a.m. sharp. She was dressed professionally. Navy suit, heels, hair perfectly styled. Not the look of a grieving mother, but of a woman preparing for battle. Wish me luck, she said at the door, and I almost laughed. Good luck. Hope you get answers. Me too. This whole thing is so stressful. She kissed my cheek. I should be back by noon. I watched her drive away, then immediately called Linda. She just left for Mitchell and Brown. I know. I've got someone positioned across the street. We'll document how long she's there, whether she meets anyone after. Linda paused. Patricia wants to see you this morning, too. Can you make it by 10? I'll be there. Patricia's office felt different this time, more real. The first visit had been reconnaissance, planning, theoretical. This visit felt like the beginning of the end. She had documents spread across the conference table when I arrived. Financial reports, screenshots from Sarah's phone, transcripts of the voice recordings I'd found. Your wife is incredibly stupid or incredibly arrogant, Patricia said without preamble. These recordings, she documented conspiracy to commit fraud, theft, corporate espionage, and tortious interference. Any decent prosecutor could get convictions on these alone. Morrison is salivating. I sent him the files yesterday. He wants to move up the timeline. My heart jumped. How soon? 1 week. He thinks we have enough for criminal charges now. The additional financial forensics would be nice to have, but what you found on that phone is gold. Direct evidence of conspiracy, of intent, of both of them plotting to defraud you. 1 week. 7 more days of pretending. Then it would all be over. What's the plan? Patricia pulled out a timeline. Next Friday, we file everything simultaneously. Criminal charges against both Sarah and Andrew. Fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. Divorce papers citing adultery and financial misconduct. Civil suit against Andrew for tortious interference and corporate espionage. We serve them all at once. Coordinate the timing so they can't warn each other or prepare defenses. How does the serving work? Process servers. We'll have one waiting at your house for Sarah, one at Andrew's office for him. Friday morning, 9 a.m. We time it so they're both receiving papers at the same moment. Neither of them has warning. Neither can tip off the other. And me? You leave the house Thursday night. You don't tell Sarah where you're going. You can say you need time alone. Need to process your grief away from the house where Ethan grew up. Whatever story works. But you're not. There Friday morning when she gets served. Where do I go? Hotel. We'll book it under Linda's company name. You stay there until after the arrest. Arrest. The word still felt surreal. Morrison is pursuing felony charges. If the judge agrees to issue warrants, which he will based on this evidence, police will arrest both Sarah and Andrew Friday afternoon. They'll be booked, arraigned, bail will be set. It'll be very public, very fast, very coordinated. Patricia leaned forward. I need you to understand what this means, David. Your wife will be arrested, put in handcuffs, taken to jail. Her name and mugshot will be in every local paper and news site. People you know, people she knows, everyone will see it. There's no coming back from that. She celebrated our son's death as convenient timing for her affair. She doesn't get to come back from that. I know. I'm just making sure you're prepared for the reality. This isn't theoretical anymore. 1 week from now, your wife goes to jail. The weight of it settled on me. 1 week, 7 days. Then Sarah's carefully constructed world would collapse. What happens after the arrest? Arraignment within 48 hours. They'll each be assigned public defenders unless they retain private counsel. Bail will be set, probably high, given the amounts involved. Sarah will make bail, almost certainly. Her parents have money. And then? Then the criminal case proceeds on its own timeline while we handle the divorce. The two cases support each other. Evidence from one feeds into the other. Sarah can't claim the affair didn't happen or the money wasn't stolen when she's literally on trial for those things. How long until trial? Criminal. 6 months minimum, possibly a year. These things move slowly, but the divorce can be faster. We can push for an expedited hearing given the financial misconduct and frozen assets. Patricia pulled out another document. Speaking of which, we need to talk about the house. It's in both your names. Sarah has a legal right to be there. After the arrest, she'll probably want to go home. We can file an emergency motion to have her removed, but it's not guaranteed. What are the grounds? Emotional distress. You can't grieve your son in peace while living with the woman who celebrated his death. You can't heal while sharing space with someone who conspired to destroy you financially. Any judge with a heart will grant it, especially with the recordings as evidence. Do it. That means you'll need to change the locks, possibly get a restraining order. Are you comfortable with that level of finality? Finality. The word felt like relief. Yes, Patricia made a note. Okay, we'll file the emergency motion Friday afternoon right after the arrest. We'll ask for exclusive use of the marital home pending divorce proceedings. Given the circumstances, I'd say we have an 80% chance of getting it. And if we don't, then you live in the hotel longer while we argue the motion. But I really think we'll get it. The recordings are damning, David. I've handled a lot of divorces, seen a lot of terrible behavior, but this... She shook her head. A jury would convict her in 20 minutes. Good. We spent the next hour going through details. Asset division. What was separate property versus marital? What could be claimed as compensation for theft? Spousal support. How Sarah's misconduct would affect any claims she might make. The house, the cars, retirement accounts, investment portfolios. Everything we'd built together, being surgically divided because she'd chosen to destroy it. What about Ethan's things? I asked suddenly. His room, his belongings. Sarah has no right to those. Patricia's expression softened. That's not typically part of divorce proceedings. Personal property usually gets divided normally or by agreement. But given the circumstances, we can specify that you retain all of Ethan's belongings and any items of sentimental value related to him. I want that in writing. We'll make sure of it. By the time I left Patricia's office, it was 11:30. Sarah would be home soon. I had 30 minutes to compose myself, to put the mask back on, to pretend I didn't know that in exactly 7 days, everything would explode. I stopped at a coffee shop, sat in my car, tried to process what was coming. 1 week. Then Sarah would learn what consequences looked like. My phone buzzed. Linda. She just left Mitchell and Brown, heading to a restaurant downtown, meeting someone. Who? Checking now. Got a photo. A minute later, a photo came through. Sarah at an outdoor table sitting across from Andrew. Of course. The attorney consultation was probably legitimate. She did need legal advice. But then she'd gone straight to Andrew to debrief, to strategize, to continue their conspiracy. Can you hear what they're saying? I texted back. No, too far away, but they look stressed. Andrew keeps gesturing. They were probably panicking. The frozen accounts, the mysterious attorney, the fact that I hadn't unfrozen anything despite Sarah's increasingly obvious hints. They had to know something was wrong. They just didn't know how wrong. I drove home, got there 5 minutes before Sarah. Settled on the couch with a book I wasn't reading, arranged my face into the appropriate expression of quiet grief. She came through the door at 12:15, looking tired. How'd it go? I asked. Confusing. She set down her purse. The attorney, Richard Mitchell, he said the freeze on our accounts is definitely legally filed, definitely intentional. Someone is coming after our assets. Who? He doesn't know yet. Patricia Volkov's office won't talk to him without a court order. But he said this kind of freeze usually happens in one of 3 scenarios: criminal investigation, divorce proceedings, or lawsuit judgment. She was watching me carefully as she said this, testing to see if any of those words made me react. I frowned. Criminal investigation? Of what? We haven't done anything wrong. I know. That's what I said. Richard thinks it might be a mistake. Someone with a similar name, some kind of bureaucratic mix-up. What about divorce proceedings? I kept my voice neutral, curious. That doesn't make sense either. We're not getting divorced. The certainty in her voice was almost funny. And lawsuit judgment? He's checking court records, seeing if someone filed something we don't know about, some kind of business dispute or claim against you. Against me. She was already setting up the narrative that I was the target, not her. This is insane, I said. We just lost our son, and now we have to deal with this too? I know. It's terrible timing. She sat next to me, but Richard said he can sort it out. He just needs access to our financial records, documentation of everything we own and owe. Okay. Can you pull that together? Bank statements, investment accounts, all of it. She wanted documentation, wanted to know exactly what records existed, what paper trail could incriminate her. Sure. I'll get everything from our files. Actually, maybe I should do it. You're dealing with so much already. Let me handle the financial stuff. No, it's fine. I need something to focus on anyway. Frustration flickered across her face. David, you're barely functioning. Let me help. Sarah, I can pull some bank statements. I'm grieving, not incompetent. I didn't say you were incompetent. Then stop treating me like I am. I stood up. I'll get the documents together this afternoon. Have them ready for your attorney. I went upstairs before she could argue, heard her frustrated sigh from the living room. She wanted control of the narrative, control of the evidence, control of the process. Every instinct she had was telling her something was wrong, but she couldn't figure out what, and she couldn't ask directly without revealing that she had something to hide. I spent the afternoon pulling files, but not the ones Sarah wanted. I pulled copies of everything I'd already given Linda and Patricia, organized them again, made sure I had backups of backups. Everything that proved Sarah's theft, her affair, her conspiracy with Andrew. Everything that would be entered into evidence in 7 days. Sarah knocked on the study door around 3. Hey, I'm going out for a bit. Need to clear my head. Where are you going? Just a drive. Maybe the beach. I won't be long. She was going to see Andrew. Going to tell him about the attorney consultation, about my reaction, about whatever strategy they were planning next. Take your time, I said. I watched her leave, then texted Linda. She just left, probably heading to Andrew. On it, I went back to work, organizing files, preparing for the end. At 5, my phone rang. Patricia. "We have a problem," she said, my stomach. My pee dropped. "What kind of problem?" "Sarah's attorney filed a motion this afternoon. He's requesting an emergency hearing to unfreeze the accounts, claiming financial hardship and lack of access to marital funds." "Can they do that?" "They can request it. Whether they'll get it is another question. The hearing is scheduled for Wednesday. We'll have to respond, which means revealing some of our evidence earlier than planned." "How much earlier?" "We file our response Monday, hearing Wednesday. They'll see at least part of what we have. Not everything. We can hold back the recordings, some of the more damaging evidence. But they'll know we're aware of financial irregularities." "Will that spook them?" "Probably, but here's the thing. It might work in our favor. If they panic, they might make mistakes. Try to move more money, destroy evidence, do something that adds charges." I thought about it. "So we stick to the Friday timeline?" "Yes. The hearing Wednesday will be interesting. We'll reveal enough to defend the freeze, but not enough to show our full hand. They'll know we suspect something, but not that we have recordings of them literally planning crimes." "What do I do Wednesday?" "Attend the hearing, play the confused husband who hired an attorney because of mysterious account freezes. Let Sarah think you're just protecting yourself, not actively destroying her. More performance, more masks." "I can do that." "David, are you okay? Really okay?" I looked around the study, at the files spread across my desk, at the evidence of my wife's betrayal organized into neat folders, at the life I'd built being systematically cataloged for division. "I'm fine. I just want this over. 3 more days until the hearing, 4 days until everything goes public. You can make it." After we hung up, I sat in the quiet study and let myself feel it. The weight of what was coming. The finality of it. In 4 days, my marriage would be over. Sarah would be arrested. Andrew's business would implode. Everything we'd built, the house, the life, the shared history, would be destroyed. But it was already destroyed. It had been destroyed the moment Sarah decided loving our son was boring. The moment she saw his death as convenient. The moment she chose Andrew and money over everything else. I wasn't destroying our marriage. I was just making the destruction visible. Sarah came home around 7, looking calmer. Whatever conversation she'd had with Andrew had apparently reassured her. "Feel better?" I asked. "Yeah." The beach helped, cleared my head. She smiled. "I think everything's going to be okay, David. Richard seems really competent. He'll figure out what's going on, get the accounts unfrozen, and we can move on." Move on. Like it was that simple. "I hope so," I said. "We should do something this weekend. Get out of the house, go somewhere that doesn't remind us of everything. Of Ethan." She meant somewhere that didn't remind us of Ethan. "Maybe. Let's see how I feel." "Okay. No pressure." She kissed my forehead. "I'm going to make dinner. You want anything specific?" "Whatever you're making is fine." I watched her go to the kitchen, domestic and normal, playing the role of devoted wife making dinner for her grieving husband. 3 more days of this, then Wednesday's hearing, then Friday's reckoning. I could last 3 more days. I had to. Wednesday morning arrived cold and gray, the kind of weather that matched courtroom drama. I dressed carefully, conservative suit, tie, the appearance of a man barely holding himself together, the grieving husband trying to navigate legal complexity while still reeling from loss. Sarah dressed carefully too, professional but sympathetic, gray dress, minimal jewelry, understated makeup, the grieving mother forced to deal with financial crisis on top of tragedy. We were both performers preparing for different audiences. "Are you nervous?" she asked in the car. "A little. I've never been to a hearing like this before." "Me neither. Richard said it should be straightforward. We present evidence of financial hardship, show we need access to our accounts, and the judge unfreezes them." "What if there's a legitimate reason they're frozen?" She glanced at me sharply. What kind of legitimate reason? I don't know. You said it could be a criminal investigation or a lawsuit. What if it's one of those? Richard said he checked. There's no criminal investigation against us, no lawsuits filed. This is some kind of mistake or procedural issue. She was lying smoothly, confidently. She'd probably convinced herself it was true. We arrived at the courthouse at 8:45. Patricia was waiting outside, professional and composed. She dressed the part too, sharp suit, briefcase, the image of a competent attorney protecting her bewildered client. David, she shook my hand formally. Are you ready? As ready as I can be. Sarah stood slightly apart, watching our interaction with undisguised suspicion. You're Patricia Volkov. I am. Sarah Brennan, I presume. Why did you freeze our accounts? Patricia's expression didn't change. I represent David's interests in this matter. The freeze was requested to protect assets pending investigation of certain financial irregularities. What irregularities? We haven't done anything wrong. That's what today's hearing will establish. Patricia turned to me. David, we should go in. The hearing starts in 10 minutes. Sarah grabbed my arm. David, what is she talking about? What financial irregularities? I pulled away gently. I don't know, Sarah. That's what I hired her to find out. When the accounts froze and you said it might be criminal or a lawsuit, I got scared. I needed someone to protect me. Protect you from what? From me? From whatever's happening. I don't understand any of this. Her attorney, Richard Mitchell, appeared then, a man in his 50s, expensive suit, practiced charm. Sarah, let's go inside. We can sort this out in front of the judge. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, the smell of old paper and floor polish. Judge Catherine Warren presided, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and no-nonsense demeanor. We took our positions, Sarah and Richard on one side, Patricia and me on the other, like divorce proceedings, which I suppose this was a preview of. This is case number CV-255-8847, the bailiff announced. Mitchell versus Volkov, motion to unfreeze marital assets. Judge Warren looked at Richard. Mr. Mitchell, you filed this motion. Present your argument. Richard stood. Your Honor, my client Sarah Brennan and her husband David recently suffered a terrible tragedy, the death of their 10-year-old son. While they were grieving, their accounts were mysteriously frozen by opposing counsel without explanation or justification. My client has no access to funds, cannot pay bills, and is suffering financial hardship. We request immediate unfreezing of all marital accounts. Ms. Volkov, your response? Patricia stood. Your Honor, the accounts were frozen to preserve assets during investigation of significant financial irregularities. We have evidence of unauthorized transfers, suspicious transactions, and potential fraud. Unfreezing the accounts now would allow further dissipation of marital assets. What evidence? Bank records showing transfers to suspicious accounts, credit card charges that don't match either party's known activities, and documented communications suggesting financial misconduct. Richard spoke up. Your Honor, Ms. Volkov is making vague accusations without specifics. What suspicious accounts? What communications? My client deserves to know what she's being accused of. Judge Warren nodded. Ms. Volkov, I'm inclined to agree. If you're going to keep these accounts frozen, you need to provide more than general allegations. Patricia pulled out a folder. Your Honor, I have bank statements here showing transfers from joint accounts to an LLC called Clearwater Holdings. Over $400,000 has been moved to this account over the past 8 months. Neither my client nor, apparently, Mrs. Brennan can explain these transfers. She handed copies to the judge and to Richard. I watched Sarah's face carefully. She went pale, then recovered quickly. Richard glanced at the documents. These could be legitimate business expenses. My client's husband runs a consulting firm. My client's firm has no relationship with Clearwater Holdings, Patricia interrupted. He's never heard of it. Yet money from joint accounts requiring both signatures for large transfers, has been flowing into it regularly. Then perhaps there's been identity theft or fraud against both of them, Richard argued. All the more reason to unfreeze the accounts so they can investigate. Or, Patricia said calmly, perhaps one party has been systematically stealing from the marriage and we're preventing further theft. Judge Warren held up a hand. Ms. Volkoff, are you suggesting Mrs. Brennan created this LLC and transferred marital funds to it? I'm suggesting it's a possibility we're investigating, Your Honor. Until that investigation is complete, the accounts should remain frozen to prevent any party from accessing or moving additional funds. Sarah leaned forward, whispered urgently to Richard. He nodded, stood again. Your Honor, my client is willing to provide full documentation regarding Clearwater Holdings. She has nothing to hide, but she needs access to at least some funds. She can't live without money. We request that the court unfreeze a portion of the accounts, enough for living expenses. Judge Warren considered. Mr. Mitchell raises a fair point. Ms. Volkoff, does your client have access to funds? My client has obtained a small line of credit for household expenses, yes. And Mrs. Brennan has no access to any accounts? Not currently, Your Honor. That seems inequitable. Judge Warren flipped through the documents. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm ordering partial unfreeze. Specifically, I'm unfreezing one checking account with a balance of... She checked the statements. Approximately $12,000. Mrs. Brennan will have access to that account for living expenses only. All other accounts remain frozen, pending further investigation. Your Honor, Patricia began. That's my ruling, Ms. Volkoff. Mrs. Brennan needs to live. She can't do that with zero access to funds. However, Judge Warren turned to Sarah. Mrs. Brennan, I'm also ordering you to provide full documentation regarding these Clearwater Holdings transfers within 7 days. Bank statements, contracts, anything explaining where this money went and why. Understood? Sarah nodded. Yes, Your Honor. And if I find out you've been playing games with marital assets, you won't like the consequences. This court takes theft between spouses very seriously. I understand, Your Honor, but I haven't stolen anything. Those transfers were... She glanced at me, then back at the judge. They were legitimate business investments. I can explain everything. Good. Then explaining them in writing shouldn't be difficult. Judge Warren signed an order. Account ending in 4782 is unfrozen effective immediately. All other accounts remain frozen. Next hearing is scheduled for... She checked her calendar. Next Wednesday, 1 week from today. Both parties will present full documentation at that time. We'll determine next steps then. The gavel came down. It was over. Sarah had gotten partial access to funds, not ideal, but $12,000 wouldn't last long. And she now had 7 days to produce documentation that didn't exist, to explain transfers she couldn't defend. We filed out of the courtroom. Sarah grabbed my arm in the hallway. David, what the hell is going on? Why did you hire an attorney to freeze our accounts? I didn't freeze them. They were already frozen when I hired Patricia. I hired her to figure out why. And you just believed her when she said I was stealing money? Sarah, are you stealing money? She looked genuinely offended. No, God no. Those Clearwater transfers. That was us saving money. Tax planning. Our accountant recommended it. What accountant? The one Andrew recommended, remember? He said we should diversify our holdings, create some LLC structures for tax purposes. It was a decent cover story, plausible enough to create doubt. Then show the documentation to the judge like she asked. If it's legitimate tax planning, the accounts will be unfrozen and this whole thing goes away. I will. I can. It's just... She looked stressed. This is awful timing. We're supposed to be grieving together, not fighting in court. I'm not fighting with you. I'm trying to understand what's happening to our finances. By accusing me of theft. I haven't accused you of anything. My attorney is investigating irregularities. If you can explain them, great. If you can't..." I let the sentence hang. Richard appeared at Sarah's elbow. "Sarah, we should talk. Conference room down the hall." She looked at me, hurt and anger mixing in her expression. "This isn't over, David." "I know." I watched them go, then turned to Patricia. She was smiling slightly. "That went better than expected," she said quietly. "She got access to $12,000, which she'll burn through in a week, and she has to produce documentation she can't possibly provide. Every day she delays, every excuse she makes, looks worse for her." "What if she fakes documentation? With 2 days until Friday?" "She doesn't have time, and anything she creates will be obviously fraudulent once we present the real evidence, the recordings, the texts, the proof that Clearwater was her personal slush fund for the affair." We walked toward the exit. Through the glass doors, I could see Sarah and Richard in a conference room, having what looked like an intense conversation. "She'll call Andrew," Patricia said. "Try to coordinate their stories. Linda's monitoring both their phones. We'll know everything they say to each other." "Good." Outside, the gray morning had turned to drizzle. Patricia opened her umbrella. "How are you doing?" "Really?" "I don't know. That was surreal. Sitting in a courtroom across from Sarah, fighting over money while pretending we're both confused about what's happening. 2 more days. Friday morning, all the pretending stops." "I know, I looked back at the courthouse. She looked so hurt, so offended that I'd accuse her, like she actually believes her own lies. Some people are like that. They lie so much and so well that they start to believe themselves. Sarah has probably convinced herself that the affair was justified, that taking the money was somehow fair, that Ethan's death wasn't something she celebrated. She can't actually believe that. You'd be surprised what people can make themselves believe when the alternative is facing what they've done." Patricia walked me to my car. "Go home. Rest. Stay away from Sarah as much as possible. Don't engage with her about the hearing or the accounts or anything financial. Let her lawyers try to build a defense that doesn't exist." "What about the documentation she's supposed to provide?" "She won't provide it. She'll stall, make excuses, ask for extensions. None of which will matter because on Friday she gets arrested and the whole game changes." I drove home alone. Sarah had gone somewhere with Richard, more strategizing, more planning, more attempts to shore up a story that would crumble the moment police arrested her. The house was empty and quiet. I stood in the entryway, looking at the space Sarah and I had shared for 11 years. The photos on the walls, our wedding, vacations, Ethan at various ages, the furniture we'd picked out together, the life we'd built, all of it about to be dismantled. I went upstairs to Ethan's room. I'd been avoiding it since the funeral, couldn't bear to face the emptiness. But now I made myself open the door, step inside. His room looked exactly as he'd left it. Bed unmade, backpack by the desk, books scattered on the floor. He'd been reading the Harry Potter series. Order of the Phoenix was on his nightstand, bookmark halfway through. I sat on his bed, picked up the book. He'd never know how it ended now, would never finish the series, never read another book, play another game, have another birthday, and Sarah had called his death convenient. The rage hit me again, fresh and sharp. I'd been so focused on the practical aspects, the evidence, the attorneys, the timeline, that I'd almost forgotten the core of it. My son was dead, and his mother had celebrated. Nothing I did to her could ever be punishment enough for that. My phone buzzed. "Linda, Sarah just met Andrew at his office. They're in his conference room. Should have audio in a minute." I waited. 2 minutes later, my phone rang. "I'm patching you in," Linda said. "You can hear them, but they can't hear you." Click. Andrew's voice. "Can't believe he hired an attorney. How did he even find out about Clearwater?" Sarah's voice. "I don't know. The accounts were frozen before he hired her. Someone must have tipped him off, or the bank caught something. The bank doesn't catch anything. We've been careful. Well, clearly not careful enough. Now I have to produce documentation for $400,000 in transfers that I can't explain. Tell them it was tax planning, business investment, anything. With what proof? We didn't create any backup documentation because we didn't think we'd need it. Then create it now. Backdated contracts, emails, whatever you need. In 7 days? Andrew, that's not enough time to make it look real. Then ask for an extension. The judge already seemed suspicious. If I ask for more time, it'll look like I'm stalling. You are stalling. I know that, but I can't make it obvious. A pause. Papers rustling. Andrew again. Okay. New plan. We accelerate. We were going to wait until after you divorced him to make our move on the company, but we do it now. This week. File the hostile takeover paperwork tomorrow. Get the senior staff to jump ship. Tank his client base. By the time he figures out what's happening, his company is worthless and he's too broke to fight the divorce. He'll fight back. With what? With frozen accounts and legal bills piling up? He'll be broke before he knows what hit him. Sarah's voice was doubtful. I don't know. This feels rushed. It is rushed, because he's onto us. The longer we wait, the more time he has to find evidence, build a case. We need to hit him now, hard, before he can protect himself. What about the criminal investigation? His attorney said there might be fraud charges. There's no criminal investigation. She was bluffing, trying to scare you. If there were actual charges, we'd know. Wrong, I thought. You'd know on Friday. Sarah, I guess. God, this is such a mess. Why couldn't he just stay oblivious like he was supposed to? Because you got sloppy. Those texts on your phone, those calls from his number, you weren't careful enough. Don't blame this on me. You're the one who wanted to move $400,000. Because you kept spending it, the clothes, the trips, that jewelry. That was for us, for our future. They were turning on each other, the stress fracturing their alliance. Andrew, look, we don't have time for this. We need to move fast. Tomorrow I file the takeover paperwork. Friday we execute the senior staff raids. Next week, his company collapses, and you file for divorce from a position of strength instead of weakness. What if it doesn't work? It'll work. Trust me. By this time next week, David Brennan will have nothing. No company, no money, no leverage. And you'll be free. The call ended. Linda came back on. Did you get all that? Yes. They're planning to move tomorrow. Should I tell Patricia? Tell her everything. They just confessed to conspiracy, fraud, and corporate sabotage. Are you okay? I looked around Ethan's room, at the life interrupted, at the childhood ended, at the future stolen. I'm fine. Let them make their move. It won't matter. Because in 2 days, both of them would be in handcuffs, and all their planning would mean nothing. Thursday morning, woke up alone. Sarah had slept in the guest room, or claimed to. More likely, she'd been up late with Andrew, finalizing their plans to destroy my company. Let them plan. They had no idea what was coming. I made coffee, checked my phone. 3 messages from Linda, all time-stamped after midnight. Andrew filed hostile takeover paperwork at 11:47 p.m., moving faster than expected. He's reaching out to your senior staff, offering double salaries to jump ship. Marcus Chen and Jennifer Walsh have already responded. Sarah transferred $8,000 from the unfrozen account, tracking where it went. I called Linda immediately. Good morning, she said, sounding exhausted. Been a busy night. Tell me everything. Andrew filed incorporation papers for a new consulting firm, Meridian Strategic Partners, capitalized at $1.2 million, source of funds listed as private investment. He's positioning it as direct competition to your firm, using my stolen money to compete with me. Exactly. He sent emails to your top 5 employees at 3 a.m. The offers are generous, double salary, equity stakes, signing bonuses. He's trying to gut your company in one move. Who's responded? Marcus and Jennifer showed interest. The others haven't replied yet. But David, it's early. People check email at different times. By end of day, you might have a mutiny. I thought about Marcus, brilliant strategist, with me since the beginning. Jennifer, best project manager I'd ever worked with, loyal for 6 years. The idea of them betraying me for Andrew's blood money made me sick. What about the $8,000 Sarah transferred? Went to a law firm, different from Mitchell and Brown. She's hiring additional counsel. For what? Unknown, but my guess, she's preparing for the divorce. Getting a divorce attorney separate from the one handling the account freeze. She's building her legal team. How many attorneys does she need? As many as it takes when you're about to be arrested for fraud. Linda paused. Patricia wants to move up the timeline. She thinks we should serve papers today instead of tomorrow. My heart jumped. Why? Because they're moving fast. Every hour we wait is another hour they can damage your company, move money, destroy evidence. We hit them now. We stop the bleeding immediately. What time? Noon. Process servers are already on standby. We just need your authorization. I looked at the clock. 7:15 a.m. In less than 5 hours, Sarah would be served with divorce papers and criminal charges. Andrew would be arrested. It would all be over. Do it, I said. You need to leave the house, now. Pack a bag, get out. Be anywhere except home when the papers arrive. Where should I go? Hotel reservation is under my name. Marriott Downtown, room 847. Stay there until Patricia calls. Don't answer if Sarah tries to reach you. Don't engage at all. Okay. David, this is it. Once we start this, there's no going back. You sure you're ready? I thought about Ethan's empty room, about Sarah's voice on the recording. No custody battles to deal with later. About Andrew planning to destroy everything I'd built with money he'd stolen from me. I'm ready. Then pack your bag and go. I'll text you updates as they happen. I went upstairs, quietly. Sarah's door was still closed. I packed quickly. Clothes, toiletries, laptop, the folder of documents I'd need. Everything that mattered. At the bedroom doorway, I paused. This was the last time I'd be in this house, as a married man. The last time this would be home. I didn't feel sad. I felt relieved. I left a note on the kitchen counter. Needed to get away for a few days. Don't worry about me. Taking time to process everything. D. Then I walked out the door and didn't look back. The hotel room was generic corporate comfortable. King bed, desk, television, view of the downtown skyline. I set up my laptop, made more coffee from the in-room machine, and waited. At 8:30, Linda texted, "Process servers en route. Sarah's server will arrive at your house at 11:45. Andrew's server will arrive at his office at 11:50. Coordinated timing." At 9, Patricia called. "Are you at the hotel?" "Yes." "Good. Here's what happens over the next few hours." At noon, both Sarah and Andrew get served. Divorce papers for Sarah. Criminal charges for both of them. The papers include temporary restraining orders, preventing either of them from contacting you, entering your property, or accessing any frozen accounts. What about my company? Separate civil suit against Andrew for tortious interference and corporate espionage. The judge granted an emergency TRO preventing him from soliciting your employees or clients. Any contact he's already made is now evidence of violation. So the emails to Marcus and Jennifer are Exhibit A in the civil case. He literally documented his own crime. I had to smile at that. What happens after they're served? Police arrive approximately 30 minutes later with arrest warrants. Both of them get taken into custody, booked, arraigned. Bail hearing is tomorrow morning. Given the amounts involved and flight risk, bail will be set high. How high? $500,000 each minimum, possibly more. Sarah's parents have money. I know, she'll make bail. But the arrest itself, the publicity, the mugshot, that can't be undone. Everyone she knows will see it. Her friends, her family, everyone. Good. Morrison wants to talk to you this afternoon. He'll want to go over your testimony, prepare you for what comes next. Can you meet him at 2? Yes. I'll send you the address. David, how are you holding up? I looked around the sterile hotel room. I'm fine. Just ready for it to be over. It will be. By tonight, Sarah will be in custody, and this nightmare will be behind you. We hung up. I tried to work, tried to focus on emails and client reports, but couldn't concentrate. My mind kept drifting to what was happening, what was about to happen. At 10, I called my key employees, not to warn them about Andrew. That would be interfering with evidence, but to check in, to remind them why they worked for me. Marcus first. David, hey, how are you doing? Hanging in there. Listen, I know, things have been chaotic lately. I just wanted to touch base, make sure you're okay, make sure you have what you need. I'm good. Really good, actually. We closed the Henderson deal yesterday, big win for the team. That's great. You did excellent work on that. A pause. David, are you sure you're okay? You sound off. Just tired. Still processing everything with Ethan. Of course. Man, I can't imagine. If you need anything at all, just ask. I appreciate that. You're one of the best people I've ever worked with, Marcus. I hope you know that. Thanks, David. That means a lot. We talked for a few more minutes. I didn't mention Andrew's offer. Didn't ask if he'd received it. Just reminded him that he was valued, that his work mattered, that our company was built on relationships, not just money. Same conversation with Jennifer. Then with the others Andrew had targeted. By 11, I'd spoken to everyone on Andrew's list, reminded them why they'd joined my company in the first place, reinforced the bonds that money couldn't buy. Would it be enough to counter Andrew's offers? Maybe, maybe not, but at least they'd think twice before jumping ship. At 11:40, Linda texted, "Server arriving at your house now." I imagined Sarah answering the door, taking the envelope, opening it and reading the first page. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Grounds: adultery, financial misconduct, fraud. At 11:50, server arriving at Andrew's office. Andrew at his desk, probably still drafting employee solicitation emails. The knock on his door, the official-looking man with an envelope. The moment of confusion before understanding hit. At noon exactly, Linda called. Both served. Sarah called Richard Mitchell immediately. Andrew called his attorney. They're both panicking. Have they contacted each other? Not yet. Probably afraid their phones are monitored. Which they are. Linda laughed. Oh, this is beautiful. Sarah just tried to call you. 4 times. All went to voicemail. What did she say? Listen for yourself. Linda played the messages. First, David, what the fuck? You served me with divorce papers? Are you insane? Call me immediately. Second, David, this is a mistake. Whatever your attorney told you, whatever you think I did, it's not true. Please call me. We need to talk about this. Third, I can't believe you're doing this. Our son just died and you're divorcing me. What kind of person does that? Call me back. Fourth, fine, don't call. But you're going to regret this, David. You have no idea what you've started. The progression from panic to anger to threats. Classic Sarah. She's trying to get into the house, Linda continued. But you changed the locks this morning, right? Yes, Patricia arranged it. Good. She's standing on the porch now, trying her key. Oh, she just kicked the door. Classy. You have cameras? Patricia installed them yesterday. Front door, back door, all entrances. Everything's being recorded. At 12:30, police just arrived at Andrew's office. He's being arrested now. I felt a surge of satisfaction. What about Sarah? Police are en route to your house. Should be there in... Hold on, they're pulling up now. Linda narrated what she was seeing on the camera feeds. 2 officers. They're approaching the door. Sarah sees them. She's backing away. They're showing her the warrant. She's... Oh wow, she's refusing to cooperate. That's going to make this harder for her. I could picture it. Sarah, indignant and terrified, refusing to believe this was happening to her. They're handcuffing her. She's crying now. Mascara everywhere. They're walking her to the car, and she's in custody. It's done. It's done. My wife was in police custody, being driven to the station to be booked, fingerprinted, photographed. Her mugshot would be public record. Her arrest would be in the news. Sarah Brennan arrested for fraud and embezzlement. Sarah Brennan, who'd celebrated our son's death as convenient timing. I should have felt triumphant, vindicated, something. Instead, I felt empty. David, you still there? Yeah, I'm here. They're taking her to county. Arraignment is tomorrow at 9 a.m. You should be there. I'll be there. Linda was quiet for a moment. This is what you wanted, right? This is justice. Yes, this is justice. But justice felt hollow. It didn't bring Ethan back, didn't undo the betrayal, didn't restore the years I'd wasted on someone who'd never loved me. It just ended things. At 1 p.m., Patricia called. You heard? Linda told me everything. Good. Both of them are in custody. Both lawyered up immediately. Sarah has 3 attorneys now. Andrew has 2. This is going to be a circus. When's the arraignment? Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Morrison will be there to prosecute. You should attend. Show the judge you're the victim here, that you're invested in seeing justice done. What should I expect? Standard arraignment procedure. They'll be brought in separately, charges will be read, pleas will be entered, probably not guilty for both of them. Bail will be argued, then we wait for trial. How long? 6 months minimum for criminal. The civil suits can proceed faster. Divorce might take a year. A year of this. A year of court dates and legal battles and seeing Sarah's face across courtrooms. I can do a year. I know you can. David, you did the right thing. I know it doesn't feel good right now, but what Sarah did was criminal. What Andrew did was criminal. They're facing consequences they earned. I know. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be intense. I tried to rest, tried to eat lunch, take a nap, do anything except think about what was happening. But my mind wouldn't stop. Sarah in a cell, Andrew in another. Both of them realizing their plans had failed spectacularly. Both of them probably blaming each other, or blaming me, or blaming anyone except themselves. At 3, Morrison called. Mr. Brennan, I'm sorry about the circumstances, but I wanted to thank you for your cooperation. The evidence you provided, especially those recordings, makes this case airtight. Just doing what needed to be done. Still, most people don't have the courage to turn in their own spouse, especially not so soon after losing a child. Morrison paused. How are you holding up? Everyone keeps asking me that. Because it's a valid question. You've been through hell. I'm fine. I just want this over. It will be. I'm pushing for a fast trial timeline. With evidence this strong, there's no reason to drag it out. We can probably get a trial date within 3 months. And then they both go to prison. With the amounts involved and the conspiracy charges, we're looking at 5 to 10 years for each of them. 5 to 10 years. Sarah would be in her 40s when she got out. Andrew would be 50. Good, I said. We talked for another 20 minutes. Morrison wanted to prepare me for testimony, for the questions defense attorneys would ask, for the ways they'd try to paint me as vindictive or opportunistic. They'll argue you're using the criminal charges to gain advantage in the divorce, Morrison said, that you're a grieving father lashing out, making accusations you can't prove. Except I can prove them. We have recordings of them literally planning crimes. I know. That's why we'll win. But juries are unpredictable. They might sympathize with a mother who lost her child. They might think the affair was wrong, but not criminal. We need to be prepared for anything. After Morrison hung up, I sat in the hotel room and watched the sun set over the city. Somewhere out there, Sarah was in a cell. Somewhere Andrew was too. Tomorrow they'd be arraigned. In a few months they'd be tried. Then they'd be convicted and sent to prison. And I'd be, what? Free, vindicated, whole again. I didn't feel any of those things. I felt tired. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You're going to regret this. You have no idea what you've started. She's going to destroy you. Andrew. Had to be Andrew, using someone else's phone from jail. I deleted the text. Another buzz. This time from a number I recognized. Sarah's mother. David, what have you done? Sarah is in jail. How could you do this to her? To our family? She just lost her son and you have her arrested? You're a monster. I stared at the message. Thought about responding, about explaining what Sarah had done, what she'd said about Ethan. Then I deleted that too. They'd all know soon enough. The evidence would be public record. The recordings would be played in court. Everyone would hear Sarah calling Ethan's death a relief and convenient timing. Let them be shocked. Let them be horrified. Let them know who she really was. I ordered room service for dinner, burger and fries I barely touched. Watched television without seeing it. Tried to sleep but couldn't. At midnight, I gave up and went to my laptop. Started writing. Not for the case, not for attorneys or judges. For me, I wrote about meeting Sarah, about falling in love with someone who'd never existed, about building a life with someone who'd been planning its destruction the whole time. I wrote about Ethan, about his laugh and his questions and the way he'd looked at me with absolute trust. About the last time I'd seen him alive, rushing out the door to school, calling "Love you, Dad" over his shoulder. I wrote until 3 a.m., until my eyes burned and my hands ached. Then I slept, finally, dreamlessly. Tomorrow, Sarah would be arraigned. Tomorrow, the world would know what she'd done. Tomorrow, everything would be official, public, real. I was ready. The courtroom was packed. I hadn't expected that. News crews clustered outside the courthouse entrance, reporters with cameras and microphones waiting to capture Sarah's perp walk. Apparently, grieving mother arrested for fraud was compelling television. Patricia met me at the side entrance. We're avoiding the media circus. Come with me. We slipped through a service door, took back corridors to the courtroom. Inside, the gallery was filled with faces I recognized. Sarah's parents in the front row, her sister beside them, friends from our neighborhood, people from my company. They all stared when I entered. Sarah's mother stood up. "How dare you show your face here?" Patricia stepped between us. "Mrs. Chen, you need to sit down. He had my daughter arrested while she's grieving. Your daughter committed multiple felonies. Mr. Brennan is the victim here, not the perpetrator. She loved that boy. Losing Ethan destroyed her." I almost laughed, almost pulled out my phone and played the recording of Sarah calling Ethan's death convenient. But Patricia's hand on my arm stopped me. "Save it for testimony," she whispered. We took seats on the opposite side of the gallery from Sarah's family. The division was clear. Them versus me. The people who believed Sarah's performance versus the one person who knew the truth. At 9 a.m. exactly, the bailiff called order. "All rise." The Honorable Judge Margaret Hensley presiding. Judge Hensley was younger than I'd expected, maybe 50, sharp-eyed, no-nonsense expression. She took her seat and reviewed the docket. First case, People versus Sarah Chen Brennan and Andrew Michael Foster. Charges of fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy to commit fraud, and grand theft. Are the defendants present? A side door opened. Sarah appeared first in Orange County jumpsuit, hands cuffed in front of her. She looked terrible. No makeup, hair pulled back, eyes red from crying. She scanned the courtroom, found her parents, and started crying harder. The performance was masterful. Andrew came next, also in orange, also cuffed. He looked angry rather than sad. His jaw was clenched, eyes forward, refusing to acknowledge the crowd. They were positioned at separate tables, separate attorneys flanking each. Sarah had her team of 3. Andrew had 2, all expensive suits, all ready to fight. Morrison stood for the prosecution. Your Honor, the people are ready to proceed. Defense counsel? Sarah's lead attorney, a man named Thomas Crawford I recognized from TV ads, stood. Ready, Your Honor. Andrew's attorney, a woman named Diane Foster, also stood. Ready, Your Honor. Very well. Let's begin with Ms. Brennan. Charges are fraud in the amount exceeding $400,000, embezzlement from marital accounts, conspiracy to commit fraud, and grand theft. How does the defendant plead? Crawford spoke. Not guilty, Your Honor. Bail arguments? Morrison. Your Honor, the people request bail be set at $1 million. Ms. Brennan has demonstrated willingness to steal large sums of money, has proven herself dishonest in her marriage and financial dealings, and poses a significant flight risk given the severity of charges. Crawford. Your Honor, that's absurd. Ms. Brennan has deep ties to this community. She's lived here for 11 years. Her entire family is here. She has no criminal record. She's also recently suffered the tragic loss of her only child. Requiring $1 million bail for a first-time offender is excessive and punitive. Judge Hensley reviewed documents. Ms. Brennan, you're accused of systematically stealing from your husband over 8 months, transferring marital funds to shell accounts, and conspiring with your co-defendant to destroy your husband's business. These are serious charges involving significant premeditation. Your Honor, Sarah's voice cracked. She was crying openly now. I didn't do this. I loved my husband. I love him still. This is all a terrible misunderstanding. My son just died, and now I'm being accused of crimes I didn't commit. Please, I just want to go home. Judge Hensley's expression didn't soften. Ms. Brennan, save your testimony for trial. Right now, we're determining bail. She looked at Morrison. $1 million is high for a first-time offender, even with these charges. I'm setting bail at $500,000, cash or bond. Sarah's mother gasped with relief. $500,000 was still substantial, but manageable for them. Next defendant, Mr. Foster. Same charges plus tortious interference with business relationships. How does defendant plead? Diane Foster. Not guilty, Your Honor. Morrison argued for the same bail. Diane countered that Andrew was a successful businessman with no prior record, no flight risk, fully cooperative with authorities. Judge Hensley set his bail at $500,000 as well. Both defendants are ordered to surrender passports, may not leave the state, must check in weekly with probation officer. No contact between defendants or with the alleged victim, David Brennan. Preliminary hearing is set for 2 weeks from today. Any questions? Crawford stood. Your Honor, we'd like to request the no-contact order between defendants be lifted. Ms. Brennan and Mr. Foster are business associates and need to communicate regarding ongoing legitimate business matters. Morrison shot to his feet. Absolutely not, Your Honor. These defendants are accused of conspiracy. Allowing them to communicate defeats the entire purpose of separate trials and prevents witness tampering. Request denied, Judge Hensley said. No contact means no contact. If you have legitimate business matters, handle them through counsel. Anything else? Yes, Your Honor. Crawford pulled out papers. We're filing motion to dismiss based on insufficient evidence and prosecutorial overreach. We're also requesting the immediate return of all funds frozen in the account freeze order. Motion to dismiss will be heard at preliminary hearing. As for frozen funds, that's a civil matter, not criminal. Take it up with family court. We're adjourned. The gavel came down. Sarah's parents rushed to post bail. I watched them hug Sarah through the barrier, watched her cry into her mother's shoulder. The devastated daughter, the wrongly accused wife. Only I knew it was all theater. Andrew's parents weren't there. He stood alone while his attorney made phone calls, arranging his bail. He looked across the courtroom, and our eyes met. The hatred in his gaze was pure and cold. Good. Let him hate me. Let him rage in his expensive lawyer's office about the injustice of facing consequences. Patricia touched my arm. Let's go. Press is waiting outside. I'm not talking to the press. You don't have to, but they'll want footage of you leaving. You're the grieving father whose wife stole from him. Very sympathetic. We left through the front entrance this time. Cameras immediately swung toward us, microphones thrust forward. Mr. Brennan, how do you feel about your wife's arrest? Mr. Brennan, is it true she celebrated your son's death? Mr. Brennan, are you seeking full custody of marital assets? Patricia's statement was brief. Mr. Brennan has suffered tremendous losses. First his beloved son, now the discovery of his wife's extensive betrayal and theft. He's cooperating fully with law enforcement and asks for privacy during this difficult time. No further questions. We pushed through to the parking garage. I could hear Sarah behind us, her attorneys making their own statement. Ms. Brennan is innocent of all charges. This is a vindictive prosecution by a grieving husband looking for someone to blame. The truth will come out at trial. In Patricia's car, finally away from cameras and crowds, I exhaled. That was awful. It'll get worse before it gets better. Sarah's attorneys are going to play the grieving mother card hard. They'll make you the villain, the heartless husband who had his devastated wife arrested. Let them. We have recordings of her calling Ethan's death convenient, which won't be admissible until trial. For now, public opinion will be divided. Some people will believe her performance. We drove in silence for a while. Then Patricia said, "Her parents posted bail. She'll be out by noon." "Where will she go?" "Probably to her parents' house. She can't go to your house. Restraining order. Can't contact you. Can't contact Andrew. She's essentially cut off from her co-conspirator and her victim." Good. The preliminary hearing in 2 weeks is crucial. That's where Morrison presents enough evidence to justify going to trial. He'll show bank records, some of the texts, maybe play portions of the recordings. Will Sarah be there? Yes. Both defendants have to be. That'll be your first time seeing her since the arrest. I can handle it. Patricia glanced at me. David, I need you to be prepared for what's coming. Sarah's attorneys are going to attack you personally. They'll claim you're unstable from grief, that you're misinterpreting innocent transactions, that you're using the legal system to punish your wife for an affair. None of that is true. Doesn't matter. They'll say it anyway. They'll make you look vindictive and cruel. Are you ready for that? I thought about Ethan's room, about the empty space at the dinner table, about the future stolen from my son. I'm ready. We pulled up to the hotel. Patricia handed me a folder. Discovery materials. Sarah's attorneys filed them this morning. Her version of events, her explanation for the Clearwater transfers, her counter-narrative. I opened the folder. Read the first page of Sarah's statement. I loved my husband and son with all my heart. The money transfers were legitimate tax planning recommended by our accountant. My relationship with Andrew Foster was a mistake, but not a crime. My husband is grief-stricken and looking for someone to blame for our son's death. I am not that person. I am a victim twice over, first losing my child, now losing my freedom to false accusations. I closed the folder. She's denying everything. Of course she is. What else can she do? Admit she stole $400,000 and conspired to destroy your company? She's hoping the jury will believe her instead of the evidence. They won't. Probably not, but juries are unpredictable. Patricia's expression was serious. This is going to be a fight, David. A long, ugly, public fight. You need to be absolutely certain you're ready for that. I looked at the folder, at Sarah's lies typed neatly on official letterhead, at the construction of a reality that didn't exist. I'm certain, I said. She doesn't get to rewrite history. She doesn't get to pretend she loved Ethan when she celebrated his death. I don't care how ugly it gets. The truth is coming out. Okay then, Patricia nodded. Preliminary hearing is October 8th. Between now and then, stay away from Sarah. Don't engage with her family or friends. Don't post anything on social media. Just lay low and let Morrison build the case. I can do that. I went back to my hotel room, ordered lunch I didn't eat, tried to work but couldn't focus. Sarah was out on bail. Somewhere in this city, she was free, planning her defense, constructing her lies. But in 2 weeks, Morrison would present the evidence. The recordings, the texts, the proof of what she really was. And then the world would know. I just had to wait. 2 more weeks. I could manage 2 more weeks.